Calling the Board of Selectmen's meeting, Town of Southampton, Thursday, March 21st, Tuesday, 5 p.m. First we'll start Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have a favor idea, Dan. Can you turn the heat down in here? Because I have a funny feeling somebody cranked it up. Oh. Sure. All right. Okay, the first thing on this committee's agenda is going to be reviewing the people that have applied to be on the Town Administrator Search Committee. First of all, let me say I'm impressed with the amount of people that have submitted their names. This is very refreshing to see all the volunteers that want to do this. Wasn't quite sure how we wanted to put this together, so I figured the first thing we do is just put this up on the board so we can actually see all the names. I think the first thing we should focus on is the town employees. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that screening committee has 3 slots open for town employees.
Correct.
So does the board want to take and move forward with town employees first?
Sure.
Sounds good.
I'll put your microphone.
Your mic doesn't work. You can share.
Your mic doesn't work?
Oh, there's the plug. You see it? Oh, that's the battery.
I was going to, it somehow disappeared.
Thank you. It's fast. Chasing kids, that'll make you fast.
Do we need to adjust the cameras too? Jim, you want to get up there? You have a green light?
I do, thank you.
Well, evidently somebody was busy in this room at some meeting.
Yeah, just kicking the wires dislodges them, so.
Didn't know how this board wanted to go with this. My feeling was putting it up on the screen as PowerPoint, and my thought was is we just simply do a straw vote on each individual just to sort of see how they felt. You want to do it that way?
Sure.
So I guess I'll start from left to right with Shannon.
What?
Do you want to vote for Mr. Goyette?
Yes.
And Jackie?
Yes.
And I say yes.
I say yes.
Yes.
All right, now we'll move to Mr. Kemp. And we'll go right back to
Shannon.
How many are going to be on each one?
3.
There's 3.
3 on the employee, 4 on the citizens.
I'm trying to get a straw vote so we know who to focus on.
No.
Jackie?
Yes.
I'm yes.
I'm yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Oh, you're catching on.
Yes.
It's
Making
5
fun of
o'clock.
my
We got
voting, are you, I see?
Did you vote
Yes.
yes?
Which
Vicky-
vote?
Vicky
When-
Morrow.
Yes.
Okay. Swanson?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, this makes 4. We only have 3 positions.
We're just trying to get a
I'm
total.
just trying to get a total here to see where we're at.
Okay.
I'm going to say no.
I'm going to say no.
On number 4, we're talking Geraldine?
Yes.
Yes.
How many is that? 3?
3.
I don't understand your voting system on how you're doing it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm voting on the 3 that I want, but you guys are voting on all of them, so I don't understand.
We're
how
all voting
getting
on our
voted.
top 3,
We're
so...
voting on our top 3s.
I voted on top 4.
Oh, okay, all right. So I already voted 3, so then I would have no, because I already voted 3 people.
Jackie?
Guess I was misunderstanding how it was working.
Right.
Are we still on Geraldine?
No.
No, okay, so John? Yes.
Please, no.
I have no...
No.
All right.
What did you have, Shannon?
What?
What did you say?
For John.
No, I already voted 3,
So
so no.
It was 1.
I had it down to 4, and I was hoping we're gonna have some discussion, and then I would narrow it down from there. That's
All right, well, we're down to 4 now.
for me.
Yeah, I know my top 3 are 1, 2, and 3.
I have 1 and 2, and a toss-up between 3 and 4. I'm not sure.
So can I just ask a question? Can we take the 2 that have 5 votes and just have them as 2 of the people, and then look for a third? Does that make sense?
Do we both agree?
Yeah, 1 and 2 I'm good with.
Well,
It's
okay.
1 and 3.
It's 1 and 3, actually.
He's talking about slots 1 and 2, right?
Wait a second. I voted,
Goyette has 5, Kemp has 4, Morrow has 5, Workman 1. You writing those?
So right now,
right, I had 1, 3, and then I was tossed up between 3 and 4.
These are the votes. Those are the votes.
Okay.
So, as I'm reading this, Mike Goyette and Vicky Morrow have 5 votes each.
And then I
Well-
guess.
Well, I just know, I chose Mike, Randall, and Vicky.
Right.
And Geraldine, so that's 4.
Yeah, I did the same.
I know.
So we're going down to 3.
So I should change my vote on one of those to make it 3.
Well, you don't have to do that, because we can look at the top 4 now. Oh, unless you want to change it, and make it easier. If it makes it easier, I don't know what you're voting.
if you or Jackie change your vote.
It was just a straw vote, where there was no official vote.
No, this is just a straw vote, just, I'm trying to simplify this as quickly as I can.
All right.
I mean, if you don't like this, that's fine, I'm open to whatever you'd like to do.
There's no real other way to do it.
I know, I don't know of any other way anyways.
So the viewers at home are not getting this. Is this not going to be a live meeting tonight, or?
It is a live meeting.
It
Oh,
is.
they're not getting any feed at all?
Are they getting a picture?
They're getting nothing.
Nothing.
Well,
No?
so you want to change your vote
All
on
right.
something?
Well, we plugged in everything that we saw that was unplugged.
Hey, Chuck? Oh, Chuck. Charlie, sorry.
What was that?
I said Chuck.
Chucky boy.
I never called you that.
Chucky?
I said Chuck, but go ahead.
So I'll let Jackie go first, since you were first.
Thanks, Jen, appreciate that. Okay, well, I think Mike, Vicky, and John Workman do a good job.
So your third one is for John Workman?
Yes.
John Workman had the least amount of votes. He only has one
Yeah,
vote.
I know.
Because it's supposed to
So I
go
gotta
between
vote, okay.
Randall and
That's why-
Geraldine.
That's why I put a line
Okay,
across
so-
the name.
Then Mike, Vicky, and Geraldine.
Yeah, we understand, Art.
I'm,
Randall or Geraldine.
There's too many votes. You're only supposed to vote 3 times.
right. I'm going to say,
That's not the way he did it, though. It was just a straw vote to see where people stood.
right.
This is not a final vote by any stretch.
I'm just clarifying, because I thought you said it was each person gets 3, that's why I was...
Well, that's what my hope was.
See, I didn't understand
We
it
all
that way
didn't follow
either.
his rules.
So if you want
So-
to do it that way, let's just do it that way now.
Do it over again?
No, I mean, we've got the top 4, so.
Oh, my gosh.
Why don't we just vote to eliminate 2?
How about you just pick your top 3?
That's what I'm saying. yeah.
Okay,
I already picked my top 3. How about somebody else?
I just did
What were
that.
your top 3, Shannon?
let's start over. Your top
Mine
3.
were Mike, Vicky, and Geraldine.
Mike,
That's where I put my 5 votes, or my vote.
Okay.
You have what,
Okay.
2 that have 5, and that's what yours is?
Yes.
Okay.
Two for
What are yours,
Yeah.
Jackie?
Mike, Vicky, and Geraldine.
Okay.
all right,
You want to, in case you're a tiebreaker, you want
next.
to hold off?
all right.
I'm just saying. Okay, I went with Mike, Randall, and Vicky.
Okay,
Mike, Randall, Vicky.
Charlie is the deciding vote.
so I'm going Mike, Randall, and Vicky.
Okay,
Okay.
that's it.
Wow.
Has to be an easier way.
It's going to be easier now. We got,
Well, when you get to the top, yeah,
Yeah, if you're going to vote for the top 4.
yep.
yep.
I
All
think,
right, do I hear a motion to appoint Mike, Randall, and Vicky as on the employee side of the administrative, town administrative search committee?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Discussion?
No?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous? So moved. All right. Now, I got an email from Joanne saying she's withdrawing her name.
But my understanding is that that's not, she's,
I'm sorry?
my understanding is she's back in? Yeah, so,
All right. That's fine, I just want to make sure we're...
yep.
And is there any other names here that are in error or are missing that anybody can sing out? One of the problems we didn't do is we didn't put a cutoff time for the people to submit their names in. So everyone's names here, that is interested here is up there, right?
No, I'll throw mine in that. Can't see. Yeah, that's great.
Dan, you'll be number 13, is that okay?
Oh, what's a number?
That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
All right, so we're picking our top 4.
Yes.
Spell your name, Dan.
VELL-BG,
Say again?
EG, RINI.
So that's working good, ain't it? Well, I hope you don't mind it that way, Dan. Evidently, it's set up in columns. Yeah, you know, you never know, a horse could win.
So you want to do it the same way? We all pick our top 4 and see what falls out?
Yeah, and I'm going to remain silent this time. And I'm going to start with Mr. Labrie.
Good call.
Wow, okay. We just finished.
I got to tell you, I am so impressed that all these people applied.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah, I had it down. I had my top 3 there. I didn't finalize the 4th one at this point.
So why don't you finalize and I'll start off, how's that?
Good. I'll finalize my top 3.
I have them checked off, so, okay, I've got Joanne Alderman, William Erickson, Mike Rosenberg, and,
we'll slow down. Mike Rosen, who's he?
1, 2, and 9 so far, is what he just said.
1, 2, and 9, yep. And 10, Ann Roy. There's a lot of good candidates, though.
Right. A lot of good candidates.
We got to pick 4.
And Charlie, I have, mine are 1, 2, 7, and 9.
2,
1, 2. And Shannon?
I was stuck on only 3 also. I'm going number 4, number 7, number 9, and number 13.
guess I gotta put it here, Dan. Yeah, we know. All right. I would look at,
There's Jackie.
oh, yeah, Jackie, I'm sorry.
Hi.
You're too quiet.
Okay, so I'm going 1, 7, 10, no, pardon me, 1, 3, 7, and 10.
3, 7, and 10.
Okay. Is it my turn now?
It is.
So,
Thank you.
What was that?
1, 2,
2.
7, and 9.
And 9. Okay. So 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. So if we go by the top, we've got 1, 2, 7, and 9.
Mm-hmm.
Did I get that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And that still carries the weight for all of them.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
So she is in,
Which one?
Alderman?
She got 4.
She revoked it and then she is gonna...
She's-
She's in,
She's doing it?
yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Erickson got 3. Mr. Rancourt got 4. Mr. Rosenberg got 4.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion that we give the citizens spots on the Town Administrator Committee to Joanne Alderman, William Erickson, George Rancourt, and Michael Rosenberg.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 So moved.
Congratulations and thank you.
Sir?
If those who are appointed on the citizen side could make sure that I get their email address, I'll make sure that they get any information that we receive, including, for example, the town administrator job description and anything else that comes in from consultants.
Yes, because there's going to be a lot of activity in a very short period of time. Also, for those that did not get appointed, please, there are a lot of committees and boards in need in this town. Don't assume that this is the only one. I really look forward to see if you'd apply for these other positions. And we thank everyone.
A question now, a suggestion is that we meet with the full committee, talk with them, give them a charge, and get
Yes.
them going?
My hope is next week we have a special selectmen's meeting we have to schedule.
Okay.
We can do that in open. By then, we should have figured out who the consultant's going to be.
Yeah.
And we'll be closing in on the job description for the TA.
And also the consultants, the 3 who are invited are due here this evening at 7 o'clock to make brief presentations
Okay.
to the selectmen, as well as any of the members of the search committee who can remain.
Okay.
That went faster than I expected.
Now, do you know if we're getting a feedback at,
Yep, I can see it now.
okay, so everybody heard our, the committee? Okay.
Yep.
Are they seeing that on the screen, do you know?
I don't know.
I don't know. What? Hey, Bob, does the committee have to get sworn in or anything?
They are a committee established by the Board of Selectmen. They should be sworn in.
Okay. Okay. So we need to let Janine know that, and I don't know if,
That'll be tomorrow's.
I'll remind everyone. I just need, I have, obviously, the town members' email addresses. I just need the addresses of the others who are, I have Mike Rosenberg's, but there are 3 whose address I don't have.
Mr. Erickson's right here, so,
Pardon?
Mr. Erickson's right here, so he can give it to you before he leaves.
Okay.
Guess
No,
we'll-
they couldn't see the overhead.
Okay.
That wasn't on, nope, that wasn't on TV.
we gotta work on that.
Does that projector take Wi-Fi where you can just, or does it come out of the wall into your? Yeah, I bet it comes
No,
out.
they've been using the camera, that camera to grab that screen. He evidently didn't do that, so,
Oh, okay.
but if you give me a little joystick here, I can move the cameras as I'm doing the rest of this, plugging in cables and everything else. Anyways, on a serious note, we have no hearing schedule. We're going to move this meeting forward now with open time for the public, and I'm going to read the way that's going to proceed. The Select Board reserves a portion of
Okay.
of its meetings for public comments and encourages...
Oh, Jesus.
The Select Board reserves a portion of its meeting for public comments and encourages participation as follows. Open time is a time when town residents can bring matters before the Select Board that requires a minimum of discussion and are not on the agenda. Please try to keep your comments short and to the point. Plan on being allowed up to 5 minutes per person, not per topic, to speak at any meeting under open time only. If it appears the topics being discussed will consume longer than 5 minutes allocated, then, at the discretion of the chair, the matter will be placed on an upcoming Board of Selectmen's meeting agenda. If you believe your topic will require more time or deserves to make a more formal presentation than is allowed under these guidelines, please contact the town administrator to ask to be put on a future agenda so that we can properly allocate enough time. You are free to ask questions or to make your point for all to consider. However, engaging in activities of debate with the selectmen or audience members will not be allowed. All comments and questions must be directed to the chair of the board. All remarks must be respectful, courteous, free of name-calling, personal attacks. Any appropriate language will not be tolerated. Thank you. With that, open time is open.
Oh, thank you. What a gentleman. Lori Loisel, Hillside Meadows, again.
Hi.
I have requested to be on the agenda April 4th regarding senior concerns. This is our third request and hopefully will be honored this time. The seniors have a right to be heard. Now, in regards to Mr. Kanicki's remark about being on other boards other than the Town Administrator Committee, the Council on Aging Board has had an opening for months and another one effective 4/1, April 1st. There was someone who applied in February and myself on March 1st. Still no work, no word from them. Operating and making decisions without a minimum board is really against the guidelines. The Board of Selectmen are the governing board, and it's time that the COA move forward with these applications. Thank you. Any questions?
Who's there?
What's this
First,
name?
I
Okay.
I am aware those applications came in. I did ask the board, the Council on Aging Board, typically the way the protocol was is those applications went to the board, then the board came back to the Select Board as to who they wanted appointed. There's been silence on that. I explained that I was going to ask this board, if you want to put this on the agenda for our next meeting, to just pick a person to be appointed.
If the COA board is not doing anything, then we should bring it up to us.
You need to put your microphone there, or I'm going to
So
catch
the
it.
last that it was addressed to our board, the COA board hasn't even met yet. They only meet once a month, and they don't meet again until the beginning of April.
How many positions are open?
There was only one, and they didn't know that up until maybe a week or so ago, because there was a board member who stepped down. She wanted to apply for the director's position, and as far as the board knew, it was a leave of absence, and they just got confirmation that it was a resignation. So then that's when they realized that it was an actual position to be filled. But there was a few applications that have been submitted, the chair has received them. The board has not had a meeting yet to even review any of the applications. So this is kind of jumping the chain of command that needs to go through that board first, but they need to have time to meet. They're not going to have.
Do you know the exact date when their next meeting is?
They usually meet the first Wednesday of the month, so.
So it'll be like the 5th,
about
is
a
it?
week or so away.
That's 2 weeks.
2 weeks. So they're not going to meet again until the 5th anyway.
Do you know if it's going to be on the agenda?
I can have it on the agenda.
If we can have it on the agenda and have them look at the resumes and
May I
vote on it?
respond to that, please?
Absolutely.
First of all, if you get the letter of resignation that was submitted by the board member, she did not take a leave of absence, she resigned. And that letter should be in the file, and Mrs. Cutler could get that out of the file since she's the interim director. On March 7th, at the meeting, I requested that they move forward on filling the empty spots. And again, nothing has been done.
Well,
So it isn't that they didn't talk about it. They were going into executive session. They're always going into executive session. So there was time to talk about it. I mean, it's a one-page application.
So I suggest that you bring it to the COA board, because the select board really isn't the place to bring it. You can't jump over the COA board.
We have brought it to the COA board, and we're not getting any response.
She did respond to it last meeting, which was a few weeks ago, that she was reviewing them. They haven't met again since then.
No,
Is
but
it-
that's okay.
okay. We now have it in front of the Board of Selectmen.
Correct.
Our next meeting is after the 5th is what, the 18th or 16th?
Well, we meet on the we meet next week
Right,
for executive
Right.
sessions.
But that-
Following that, it's April 4th.
4th, right.
And 2 weeks after that, 20th,
18th?
18th, I'm sorry.
All right.
I can't add.
Bob, can you put it on
4/11,
the 18th on our agenda for appointment for someone on the Council on Aging?
Okay.
At that point, Mr. Kinnicky, there will be 2 openings. They're operating now without a minimum board.
Well, I want to give them the courtesy of meeting and voicing their side of this, just out of courtesy. So if they're meeting on the 5th, which is after our meeting, the best we can do, other than calling an emergency meeting, is to basically have them on the 18th.
Okay,
And I'm hoping that the COA board will send us 2 people that they're interested in filling those 2 seats, now that we've discussed it.
right. And I do believe that at the last Selectmen Board's meeting, I gave a copy to all the selectmen of my application. You are the governing board, and that's important that you realize that. You know, this Council on Aging is advisory. They're not governing. And if they're, but they're not advising the selectmen that people have come forward to serve.
But what we're saying is that they're the advisory board, and they're going to give us who they feel is the best 2 candidates, and we have the ability to say yes or no, depending on who they are. But you're right, we have the last say in it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Dan Pellegrini, 76 Crooked Ledge Road. I'm here to ask 2 questions, which may lead to a couple others. One, address this letter that was sent to me by the planning board about my silt fence. And I'd like to understand under what premise this board brought that into an executive session.
Would you like to respond to that? Basically, it's enforcement action,
Um,
litigation.
Yes. I guess in discussions with town council, it was advised that we bring the matter into executive session.
Well, go ahead, I'm sorry, Bob.
Well, I mean, because of the potential for any kind of action, including legal action.
Yes, and the way this section is written right here, it says an imminent threat of legal action. It says an imminent threat of legal action. My question was just to Randall as to what you guys are going to do about the silt fence he took down. There was no imminent action of legal action, for one. For two, 3 or 4 days before your executive session, I sent a note to Charlie and said, forget it. I've already fixed it, guys. Don't waste your time. So my concern is, why did you still proceed into an executive session and not hold a public meeting with the superintendent in here discussing the violation or said violation on my behalf, which I ended up getting a letter for?
I can tell you that I did see the message that you sent. At that point, I'm almost certain that the executive session was scheduled, and the select board makes a decision whether to proceed with that or not. So.
And may I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Now, we both sort of know our sides of this thing. In summary, suppose you signed a letter to hold the town harmless for the silt fence. That was all it came down to. Would that work for you?
Charlie, I sent you a letter basically saying you guys are off the hook. And you ignored that, and you proceeded to go down and threaten to sue me. And my wife didn't sleep for a weekend, and I had a hell weekend until I saw you finally, and we had a discussion about it. And all I was simply asking was, when the highway department ripped down a fence that was ordered there by the federal government, the EPA, the planning board, the CONSCOM, I in turn end up with a threatened lawsuit instead of any explanation as to why. So I just, in light of what is transpiring here with the closed meetings and some of the things that are in the news, I think you guys really need to understand where your authorities are on executive sessions, because this should not have been an executive session. You had every right to vet this in public, and if I had a chance to come here and speak, we could have showed you and saved our legal a lot of money by showing you that I have the town's authorization to have it in there by virtue of the planning board accepting my plan with that silt fence in there, and the CONSCOM accepting that, and also being under a SWEP, which is a federal EPA stormwater management plan, which shows that silt fence there. And that's all I'm saying is, do you guys really know also that you're supposed to do a roll call before each executive session and get individual votes as to whether you go into that executive session? And I don't think I've ever seen that once.
You haven't been to many meetings, because we do it all the
I've been to a
time.
few, and I watch a lot of them.
We go down and roll call, Martin and
Okay.
I, Kinnicky I, and, the whole,
So what I would ask for is, yes, I'd like it to go away, but I'd like the minutes from that executive session. I would like to see what was discussed about myself, my property, and my project in that executive session.
The minutes are in draft form, they haven't been
Okay.
approved yet. I hear you, I don't disagree with you, but they haven't been approved yet.
Okay.
If we send you a draft hold harmless document, you look it over, and we'll talk about it.
We'll do that. I'll look at it, and I will consider it. The other thing, too, is, I don't know who did this, but I'll find out. In sequence of me raising this complaint, a complaint came out of one of the boards to the CONSCOM that the fence was in disrepair and I could potentially be in violation. So, under the Freedom of Information Act, I see this going back and forth, and I'd like to understand why I brought this forward, why it's getting spun back to the CONSCOM that the fence is in disrepair and that it's going to be could be in legal litigation for a while, and they should address it with me. Because I came from the planning board to the CONSCOM. You were copied on it, Charlie.
I'm copied on
I know.
more stuff than I
So,
care to admit to.
so again, that's what I'm getting at here is, guys, I just tried to do the right thing. I'm trying to adhere to my the orders and conditions and trying to do the right thing. So, yes, Charlie, I'll look at that. I will consider that. I would just ask that you do more things above board, and if you any question, just put them out here in public.
Charlie, can I just comment? Mr. Pellegrini, I just want to assure you that since I have been here, every time the Board of Selectmen have gone into executive session, they have voted individually by name. They call their last name and they go aye or nay. And it's one of my responsibilities to remind them to do that if they forget or overlook it.
All right.
And I have not seen any, or I have not been present at any instance where they went into executive session in violation of that rule.
So
Just want you to know.
I appreciate that. I also understand that there might be another executive session to talk about this letter. If there's question on whether it was even legal to go in it the first time, should this not be moved to a public discussion?
Okay, sometimes I can hold my tongue, and I guess sometimes I
All right.
can't.
No,
but-
John,
But to say you want us to do more things above board, you know, you can stand there and you can complain, and you can say we can't go into executive session. We check with legal counsel, we go in under their advice, because you don't think we can go in executive session doesn't mean it's wrong.
No, I
But you
understand.
come up here constantly trying to make that to the audience that we're doing things wrong. You know, it's just ridiculous. You're welcome to go up there, but you throw so much negativity at the board, it just doesn't help anything.
Understand. And you don't think there's anything wrong with the way this was transacted and acted?
The fence was in the wrong place.
John,
It was damaged. I mean, if you talk to the planning, you talk to legal, they say it is, you say it's not. I understand differences, but we've got to go on what we think's best for the town, not what's good for one resident.
Understand, and that's my next question, was what permit authorized,
Mr. Chairman, 5-minute rule.
what authorizes,
5-minute rule.
what authorizes, what permit, so I can make sure I go get that permit, authorizes a temporary structure in a right-of-way?
You'll need to talk to Highway Superintendent on that. Mr. Lawrence is correct, it's been over 5 minutes. I will send you an email relative to that paperwork, but
But there is no executive session on this tonight, right?
not that I'm aware of, there's 2 executive sessions. One
Okay.
has to do with contract, and one has to do with land taking.
All right, good, thank you, and then we can put that on.
I'd
Okay.
just like to say one thing. Could you, I know your time is up, I understand, but you had stated, I think it was 3 things that you had acquired that made the fence legally standing there. And could you reiterate what they are,
Sure.
please, for me
So-
again?
So that project is under the EPA
Okay.
regulations. It's called a SWEP permit, SCCC. Art would probably know better what it's exactly called. And they ask for where the silt fence gets laid, and that plan was developed over a year ago, and it clearly articulates it right up against the road.
So you had a permit?
I have a plan and a wastewater stormwater, thank you.
Okay, so you-
Stormwater treatment permit.
Okay.
Or not treatment, stormwater runoff permit. And then the other is, you have to go through the planning board with your plans, which they actually tell you and where to put the silt fence, and you outline where the silt fence is, so it clearly is stated on the plans that are approved and recorded at the county.
Okay, so I have a question
Yes.
there. I know that we had put some lights up in our community, on our street, and we were told by the town that the town has 10 feet in front of our property, that we had to have permission if it was on their property. So does your fence fall into that town rule?
It varies on front of the property where your property line is in the right-of-way. So the town has a 50-foot property right-of-way,
Okay.
and it depends on where the road lays on it. At this section, the road happens to lay less than a foot off of the property line.
Oh,
So
okay.
the reality is the town only has about a foot or 2 over there, and part of my silt fence was actually on my property, if you look at the plans. So actually, it was the extended plow that came onto the property and they cut it down. So, yes, and that's what my second question was, is what permit, because you guys referenced it was unauthorized in there, and I don't know of any permit that authorizes the placement of permanent or temporary structures into the town tree belt. What was referenced to me as the problem is a curb cut, which a curb cut allows you to work in the tree belt. It doesn't allow you to necessarily put things in the tree belt. So my question back was, what permit would there be? Because thus far there, by the state authorizing it, by the planning board authorizing the plan and signing off the plan, and the CONSCOM signing off on the plan, I would have assumed the town authorized it, which is the premise the planning board gave me, that it was unauthorized silt fence in that place.
Well, I guess if you call the highway department and get that exact
Yeah.
answer, then maybe we can discuss it again.
But that's how we got here, is because I called him about the silt fence and he wouldn't call me back, so I called
Oh.
Charlie.
Well,
That's the reason.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
It's with-
thank you, I appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah. All right, any other open time?
So I will adhere to my 5 minutes. I will. I just have these.
button here.
No, I will. These are just, just for you to have just a future reading. But I'm Erin Kuchar, and 49 Coleman Road, chair of the school committee at Norris. And so I just wanted to come today because I think you may not not you, but the select board doesn't quite maybe understand the landscape that the school is in, and that we work with on a daily basis. So I kind of just putting out there what's kind of going on, so you kind of have an idea, especially when we're looking at funding, but also when we're looking at the future. And so some of the high-level stuff that I want, did you have or were you going to say? I thought you said something. Some of the high-level stuff I wanted to start with was special ed. And I think that these are all sorts of costs and things that the school has to deal with on a daily basis that I'm not sure that the general public or even you guys really know, because we're dealing with this all the time. But, some of the big costs that are hitting us are special ed costs, and that 20% of the children at Norris have special ed services. And at 540 kids, that's a large number. And so I want you guys to have a sort of an understanding of that. Also, I talk about the school choice budget and that we have school choice money. And we've been accumulating this money because we've luckily had people who wanted to come to our school. And so we've been accumulating this in a fund. And we unfortunately have had to use this fund in the last 3 years. So to basically put it out there, by next year we will have no more money in this fund because we've been balancing our budget with the fund. We've been taking about over $100,000 extra that had been built up in the fund and using that. So next year, I'm putting it out there, we're going to be down $150,000 that we've been supplementing. And I also want to just kind of give you guys an idea of kind of what's going on in the landscape. We lost our kindergarten grant from the state for $40,000. We're losing our preschool grant from the state for $17,000. Chapter 70 funding has only gone up 0.05% in the last 5 years. So I'm just putting out the landscape to you so you understand kind of where we're at. We found out that the cafeteria monitors now have to come through the general fund at the school, which we didn't used to pay for. So there's a lot of different things going on at the school right now and a lot of challenges. Luckily, we've had a great reputation, and I'm happy because I think our reputation possibly exceeds what the numbers say. To be funding our children at $10,000 per student with an average of $14,000 and everybody else in our district funding their kids $14,000. It is very upsetting, and I understand you guys are under, you have only so many pools it can go to, but I think you have to understand that eventually the reputation, that's going to come around, and so everybody wanting to come into Southampton, it's going to start to affect that. Do people want to continue to school choice if they find out that, you'll see what I gave you right there when I said the not funding piece, that went out to everybody that was in our Tiger Talk. So people understand the funding portion. Everybody who goes to the school that gets the Tiger Talk got that. So
Why did we lose the grants?
it's state. State took them away. It's state funds. State can decide they don't want to fund things. So it was nothing we had to do. It was nothing with us. And in fact, our school, the fact that our school runs the way it does and has such a good, it speaks to the teacher and the staff and the amount of effort that's put in. It's amazing. But it can only go for so long. So I just really, my coming here was to say to you guys, like, this is what we see every day. This is what's going on. And it looks bleak. Vocational, we've talked about it. In the last 4 years, it's gone up $400,000, and you know it, but that means that Hampshire Regional, Vocational, Norris, and Vocational goes up, Norris has to go down. So, we only fund at net school spending, which is the absolute minimum that you're required to fund, never above it. So I'm putting out a plea to say, consider possibly doing a little bit more than that. Consider some of the stuff that's on the landscape that we're dealing with, and that is bringing kids to our school system, moving into the area and the developments, because they're hearing these great things. But, after a while, I don't know how long that's going to continue, that our reputation could exceed what's actually happening. So that's kind of what I have.
I don't think we disagree, because the school does bring in people from outside. Our whole infrastructure is important.
Huge.
Like you said, we've got to take that pot of money and figure out, but...
I understand, and I understand it, but I'm, as coming from my side, and the plea that I'm putting out there is, please consider what's going on in the landscape and what we're dealing with, and the underfunded mandates we get on a daily basis. So
This is helpful as we're going through the budget process. Mike, did the school come up yet at the
we go on the
finance?
3rd.
On when?
April 3rd.
April 3rd?
So, yeah, and we have a meeting tomorrow that we're going to go over our whole budget. It's a school committee meeting, and I welcome anybody to come to that. That's at 6 o'clock at Norris. But I think my thing is I want to get to you guys so you see what really is going on. We live this, but, you're not in front of it all the time. So it was kind of a way to kind of get some of the information out there. And
I'll plan to be at that meeting, too. So
Great, thank
Are
you.
you having representatives there, I assume?
There's never a representative.
There's
We
no-
never have a select board person there.
No, I
Oh.
mean, are you going to have a representative at the Finance Committee on November, or April 3rd?
Oh, yeah, I'm myself going another one, and then
Okay.
the school, this Eliza from the school will be there, so yes, we'll all
Okay,
be there.
great.
so.
Charlie? Excuse me. We have you down for next week.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Oh, I jumped the gun. I'm happy to,
Well, I
oh,
mean-
I can't. I'm like, I'm happy to come back, but I'm running a different
When
board.
you say, Bob, have them down, the Finance Committee or the Select Board?
Finance Committee, the
Finance
finance
Committee.
team group at 5:30 Monday nights.
We have an email that said the 3rd. All right, we'll have to connect on that because
That's all right. We'll do the highway. We'll switch them.
They're on the highway.
Take
I don't know, do you see the same one? We have the 3rd, I don't know, the 3rd is what
Emails, you know.
is what we have, so.
That's all.
Just
But
so
this
you-
is when you'd be ready, but that's all right.
So the 3rd will be, I just want to make sure we got the meetings.
They'll be at the 3rd.
Okay.
The 3rd, that's what I have on my calendar, and we all have.
Presently, the Board of Selectmen is drafting its town report. In that town report, it acknowledges the needs of the school.
I'm happy to see
This
that.
board is paying attention.
Thank
I
you.
don't know if Jackie's removed that.
No, I did not.
Okay, so it's still there.
Okay, well, I'm happy.
We are paying attention. We do
Yes.
see this.
Yeah. And I know, and I mean, unfortunately, I don't work, I'm not with the highway department, I'm not in and out here all the time, so my thing was to come and say to you guys, I'm here to just explain, what is going on in the landscape, and give you
appreciate it.
kind of that background, so, anyway. Oh, did you have, I don't know, can Eliza?
Burned your 5 minutes. She's got a whole nother.
Oh, okay, 2 minutes.
So I'm not a resident, but I am the principal at Norris School. My name is Elisa Pluta, and I hope you give me a minute to speak. 1, 2. I just want to piggyback a little bit on what Erin said. She's correct about the school of choice money, where we've depleted that account and we're using $100,000 to support our budget every year. And the other thing that everyone needs to understand is, over the last couple of years, we haven't been able to take in as many school of choice students due to the fact that in 2014, we cut 2 teacher positions. So our class size has increased over those years, and we weren't able to take as many school of choice students in because of that. The other point that I wanted to make is our student population of special ed students is a little over 20%, which is higher than the state average. And I believe that one of the reasons why our number is high is because we don't have the reading and math support in the lower grades in order to catch those students before they fall so far behind that they become special ed or they go through the pre-referral process. So one of the things I will be asking for in my budget is a math interventionist. If you know anything about education, many schools have a tiered intervention of support for students. So general education is the first tier, and then the tier 2 is some sort of intervention where students receive 6 to 8 weeks of specialized instruction from a teacher to try to catch them up to grade level before being referred to tier 3, which is a special ed tier. So we don't have a math interventionist at this time. We haven't had one. We had a math coach and an ELA coach, English Language Arts, years ago, but those positions were cut. So we're going with 2 reading specialists, but nobody in math, and we've seen our numbers of students in math special ed increase. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Just a question, it's kind of
Yes.
like cart before the horse. If you had more school of choice coming in, would that be enough? You think you have enough of them to fund a position that you need to teach those kids? It's like,
I don't know, because the difference would be more students, yet it may not be the right amount of students in order to fund the position, and it would increase class size if I'm not looking for a classroom teacher.
Right,
So
okay.
it's kind of like, exactly,
yeah, it's not apples and oranges, huh?
exactly, apples and oranges, but
Okay, thanks.
thank you.
Michael Rosenberg, 144 East Street, Finance Committee. Just a quick note in relation to the school. So we have been working with Aaron and the school committee in the past meetings, along with tomorrow's meetings. We'll probably have, I think, 1 or 2 members there for the budget process. This is something that will need some movement in the coming years to make this a very viable and successful adventure, especially when you think about the 150, 100 that you'll be losing. There will be a large gap there that today we wouldn't be able to fund. So we will need to think creatively, whether it's Proposition 2.5, an override, or it's creating a stabilization fund to keep that going. I mean, there is going to need to be some creative thought in how we fund the school going forward. So we'll be working on that, and John, we'll see you tomorrow at the meeting. So thank you.
Excuse me.
Hi, my name is John Richards. I live on 11 Kylene Circle. I'd like to talk about the process that just went through for the search committee. I appreciate the job you have to do and the difficulties involved. I submitted an application for the search committee, and I received a phone call, and I received an email inviting us here tonight to answer questions from the board about our qualifications in the search committee. It certainly appeared that your minds were made up. It was a straw poll. There was no discussion. You didn't ask any questions of anyone in the audience, yet we were requested to be here to answer questions. So the perception of the way this was done, I just want to bring to your attention because I think people are going to look at that. Thank you.
Your point's well taken.
I was going to say, at least from my point of view, I had all the resumes, I studied them and went over them beforehand.
Yes, they were all sent out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had them for a number of weeks.
Well,
A lot of people submitted all
or
kinds
the
of background
in the application too, yeah.
I'm Carol Conrad from Crooked Ledge Road. I just wanted to say I was one of the people on there also, too. And I'm not saying I should be picked. I understand but I would have thought maybe we would have come here and they would have said, who is here and what's your name? Who are you? You're interested in the job. Okay, thank you very much for interested. And by name, that would be a little more appropriate. It kind of makes you want to think, maybe I won't bother the next time. I don't know. Because it kind of felt like we were it was already picked. And thank you for the one vote.
I got to honestly say, I didn't...
I'm not saying it had to be me. I understand that.
I didn't realize you are all invited to
Yes, we were invited by phone call and by email to come and answer questions if questions were needed.
Really?
And we thought maybe we would get at least introduced to say, this is who you are, so maybe we could put a face with a resume,
I think both of us
which would have been nicer.
wish we would have known that.
If I knew that
Yeah.
you guys were all invited for that purpose, I would like to hear that.
Yeah,
but
I
did not know
apologize.
that.
I didn't know
We would have had
that.
you stand up.
That
and-
was not conveyed
We
to
were
the
out,
board at
okay,
all.
because we did get a phone call, and we also got an email to come, And they said it wasn't mandatory.
It's important to be
Right,
here.
right, but it wasn't mandatory.
There's no indication that
Right.
there was any kind of process.
Right,
It just appeared that you guys had your mind made up.
right.
No,
Right.
it's-
And I'm absolutely fine not to be on there. That's not a problem.
Well, we just thought, it'd be nice to be interesting. If we're not picked, then so be it. The people that are on are, that's okay too.
I apologize too, because it's a little embarrassing to hear you say
Yeah, we
that.
just thought it was,
Sounds like
maybe
there was
for
a disconnect.
something in the future, you might want to change that up a little.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Okay.
for coming.
Thank you,
Thanks for your input.
thank you.
Yes.
That is...
It's open season.
Mr. Konecki, Board, my name is Jim Seating, I'm at High Street. And I kick myself for not paying better attention in civics class in high school maybe, but I'm wondering if the board could recommend a resource or a reference where a citizen like me could better understand how town government works. Is the select board and the town administrator here the same organized way another town might be?
Very similar. And
Yeah.
the easiest thing is bounce me an email, and I'll send you the MMA's Select Board Handbook.
Okay.
And that is sort of like the reference material we use to start off with stuff. Every one of these communities has a little bit different flavor,
Mm-hmm.
depending on if they are going by old general laws, if they're in a charter that's changed things. So there's always this little flavor.
So the MMA is kind of a base standard that,
Base standard is the guidebook to get things started. And you have my email, so just
Right.
bounce me an email, remind me, and I have that digital, so I'll send it to you in a PDF.
What happens if members of the select...
does it include pictures with like org charts and reporting lines for visual learners like me, or is it mostly text?
Mostly text.
Okay.
Mostly text.
I'll have to
And one of the
struggle through
difficult things, as you saw when I first started this meeting, I said, I'm putting this up on the screen. I don't know how anybody wants to go with this thing. I'm not sure. I figured a straw vote was the first way to start it, and then it just rolled.
I think it would have been important that the board knew that all the applicants
were called and emailed to say to come in so we could talk to them.
I thought we were copied that on an email.
You know what? I did not see that. And I think that even should have been addressed at the beginning of the meeting, because that is disgusting that they came out thinking that we were going to question them, when I myself was under the impression that I had all of their information here, and this is what the whole thing was based off of.
Well,
Because I'll tell you, if I was any one of them, I
Mr.
would have been
Chair.
very upset.
Yeah, just, that's not why I'm standing here. I hear what you're saying, but I'm just, you know, I had this question beforehand, so, you know, I appreciate your comments, but that's not why I'm standing here today. I appreciate being considered, and I just want to understand more how this works, because, you know, there's things in the press, and then you talk to folks, and you know, sometimes you need to do a little work to find out what's going on.
Listen to the rumors, and you listen to the press. Somewhere in the middle is the sort of quasi-truth of the world.
And people have to remember, people out there can say anything they want. We can only say what we can say outside executive session. So it's, you know.
It would be helpful for me to understand.
And also going to some of the different committee meetings is real informational, especially the Finance Committee now. They're going through the budget process. That's Monday at 5:30 every Monday. So that's good.
Yeah, a schedule too would be great. It's just...
It's all on the website.
I'm all about relationships. How does finance relate to planning board, relate to select board versus town administrator?
That you'll see in the guidebook.
Yeah.
That'll show you.
If there's some interest, perhaps we could publicize a session for mid-April, or at some point prior to the town meeting, where we could have an open session with residents in the evening and just talk about how the town government functions. Talk about the various boards, committees, departments, and so forth, who is appointed, who's elected, and what the relationships are.
I hope I'm not available every night, but I hope I am that night, because I'd love to go.
You know, we can do that. I'm happy to do that. If you, as Mark Twain said, if you read the newspapers, if you don't read the newspapers, you're uninformed. If you do, you're misinformed.
And we can bring
Touché.
Mr. Floyd in too, and he could introduce that part of it. He's the moderator.
Okay, well, certainly, Mr. Kinnicky, I'll send you that email, but I'm very interested in any kind of education that's more interactive.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But all the meetings are online, posted online.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm learning the town website's pretty good, so.
You'd be amazed the amount of meetings that actually take place in town.
Right.
It's a very busy town.
I may regret asking the question, but we'll see.
You'll see our faces
It's all
at
good.
those meetings, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Interest.
Open time for the public? One more?
Okay, I first came to you on February 2nd to voice my concerns over the Council on Aging. There was no posting then, there still is no posting. I know they're working on it, but still don't see a posting. Our assistant director has now resigned. She'll be gone in a week. I hope that's not going to take 5 months to post that one.
When I glanced at the Personnel Board's agenda, my understanding is they're reviewing a posting for the Council on Aging at their next meeting.
Right. But it's still not, but I'm saying it's still not. From February 2nd, when I first brought it up till now, it's been actually since October 5th, when I just don't know what they're doing. It's taking so long. And I think Lori already addressed this. What does it take to get on the agenda? We had 3 people request the Council on Aging be on the agenda for this meeting. 3 people and a vote of hands. You had 30 people back here saying they want, and we're not on the agenda. What do we have to do? We want to be on the agenda. Because we have things we need to concern with.
You want to be on the agenda, but is your topic going to be to attack individuals?
No.
Or is it going
No,
to be to...
we're trying to help them. When I went in there and said we wanted to help them, they went into executive session and slammed the door on us.
The problem I have with this, the selectmen have the authority to remove somebody on that board and to put somebody on that board. That's the only real authority we have. And
They have no authority other than to advise.
they
That
run-
is, all they can do is advise
They run their board.
as an advisory committee. They have no, they're not supposed to go into the office and tell people what to do or change procedures. All they can do is advise.
But who do they advise? The director, correct?
We have no director.
You have an interim director, don't you? So that's the person that they advise. So that's the person
Well,
you
I
should
put
talk
in, you
to.
say you want volunteers. I volunteered to work for them,
Yeah.
and that was back in February. No response. They've got the people who are being paid there stuffing envelopes today and putting stickers on. Nobody asked me. I volunteered. I also volunteered for, to be on the board, and they told me there was no openings when I knew there was. How they didn't know is beyond me, because the resignation was put in when that lady left to apply for the board.
How much time are you and the other two looking for on an agenda?
I would like you to invite the board, and it should be,
About 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. I've already made my request.
Do you want to come up to the podium too, so everybody can hear
I'm
you?
not done though.
I know that, and I'm not shutting you down,
Fine.
you know? We're going to bail. We're going to bail.
No.
Just,
Are they on the agenda?
my presentation is about 10 to 15 minutes. And I've asked Bob, and I know tonight was chock full.
Well, tonight just doesn't
I had
work.
no issues. I would expect it next time, so, yeah.
All right. Can we
Okay. When Art came to me, I said the 14th is going to be jammed. Of course, we had snow, and we canceled the 14th.
Yeah.
And so that made the agenda even bigger for tonight, so,
We have a selectmen's meeting we're going to post for next week.
correct.
Most of it's in executive session.
Mhm.
So if we want to figure a half an hour,
Sure.
the following gets backed up again, because then we're doing the warrant articles for town meeting.
Yeah.
It's almost like,
Let's get it on the agenda and discuss it.
Okay.
that work for you?
Sure.
Next week?
I guess.
Okay, next Tuesday.
Okay, you asked the COA board to meet with us. They did schedule a meeting, and they canceled it on Monday morning before.
It's been beyond 5 o'clock. The assessor's
5
office
minutes.
wants to talk to us.
I hadn't had my 5 minutes yet. I'm not done.
You had your 5 minutes.
I did not. He was talking, you were talking. Okay, I'll skip down to, I believe you violated the open meeting law on March 7th. You had two boards meeting together, the COA board and you. They got to decide that it was a executive session. It was your board meeting. You never took a vote that would be executive. You let them decide. And according to the Attorney General, when you're having two boards meet, one board can only be like the public. You get up and you talk, but you don't collude behind closed doors. They have to all be opening meetings when there's two boards together. It's on the Attorney General's website. Watch the first video, number 1, and it will show you that you can't do that, and you did. And I'm going to be writing a letter to you. I have 30 days from the action to write a letter to you saying you violated it. You have so many days to respond. If you don't respond, I will be filing a complaint with the Attorney General. I mean, you have to read the laws, and you're just not following them. I know you don't like me.
Well, let's just follow up on that, okay?
I can't respond to somebody
Yeah.
that's making accusations against the board like that. I mean, the
fine.
reality of it is,
Follow up
Well,
when
I'm
she
just
says it.
telling you, what I'm going to do, and you'll get to answer, and See how it falls.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to educate you because you don't make stuff up.
Any more open time for the public? Then I am closing open time for the public. I see the assessor's office is here.
Yeah, I'm going to ask our secretary to read an action that we just took, Charlie, before we get down to...
Hi, I'm Joanne from the Board of Assessors. The Board of Assessors, tonight, we discussed the assistant assessor's position, and we made a motion to promote Martha Leamy to her job, increasing her hours to 25 hours per week at $19.51 per hour, to a pre-existing position of the assistant assessor as an emergency appointment. We voted and passed unanimously, and we would like it to go into effect on March 20th, yesterday. Okay? Any? You can have Gary next.
Wanted to first appraise the board of the fact that our board, which actually we're still in session, we didn't end our meeting yet, but the Board of Assessors is in a situation now, I think most everybody's aware that we have a very capable person sitting in the second chair, if you will, who we've just taken an emergency action to promote her to a pre-existing position of assistant assessor and to pay her the amount, what was it,
$19.51.
And this is taken on an emergency nature because our principal assessor, I think everybody's aware, has some health issues that he's dealing with, and we need someone. Fortunately, we have a very capable person who is able to temporarily step into that position of principal assessor while Mike is taking care of his business. The reason we wanted to get on the Board of Selectmen's agenda tonight is obviously an emergency appointment is a very limited term. There is a provision, and I thought I had it with me, I do not, but in the personnel manual that the Board of Selectmen adopted last year, there is a provision which allows the select board to endorse is not the correct word, but to approve an action. Beg your pardon,
I
sir?
have the language in front of me.
Okay, maybe
Would
you
you like
should.
me to read it?
Yes, please.
All right. It's section B, line 1. There may be times in which a position may be filled through the promotion of an eminently qualified current employee, or in which the Board of Selectmen determines that in the best interest of the town, an internal posting is preferable. A promotion without a formal posting may be contemplated by the Board of Selectmen upon the recommendations of the department head, being the Board of Assessors, and the Personnel Policy and Procedure Board, which, when a higher rate job within the department is vacated and there's only one person in a subordinate position within the same department who is fully qualified to assume the higher position. Here's the concern. I hear what you're asking for. I don't disagree with what the situation is. I understand the situation. But it says, and the Personnel Board. We have not heard from the Personnel Board.
Might I suggest, since this has been approved by the town accountant, who's made it very clear that the funds are available to do this, and we've tried to follow all of the procedures. Basically, what we're here for is to ask the board what procedures would be best to follow to have a relatively seamless action take place here. I believe you're meeting Thursday night, is it?
Mr. Lawrence, could you come up to the podium? you're chair of the Personnel Board?
Yes, sir. First, I want to apologize to Dan. I want to get home tonight so I can eat some supper. The issue here is not the person. She's very well qualified. We have no issues with that. But this is a new position. We cannot find anything that we had a position like this before. We've had administrative assistant assessor. We have not seen an assistant assessor. So what we advised Attorney O'Connell was that we would, first we asked for a job description, which we got. We got a PRF, a personal request form, which we received. And we're going to rescore this position because it's new. And we're going to do that Thursday night. I mentioned to Gary, we have an emergency situation here. He certainly can fill out a PCF for 2 weeks. And that should get the posting done. We can do internal posting. She's a highly qualified person, and we don't want to lose her. And I think we've followed, all the rules that you wrote, you read there. And we'll get this thing done hopefully Thursday, and then they'll publish it internally, post it internally, and we'll be done.
So what I'm hearing is that by next Tuesday's Selectmen's meeting, this could be approved, but they can take an emergency action as of tonight.
Exactly, and that was the key, was to make sure she was getting paid, because she's going to have extra duties because of Mike's situation.
So if they take the emergency action tonight,
right,
we'll take our action next week.
Right, and we will sign the emergency on Thursday at our next meeting. So I think it covers all bases, and she, again, we don't want to lose her. I think she's absolutely incredibly good. So.
Okay.
How does the assessors
Gary?
feel about that?
That's fine, and I did discuss this, and I think that's probably the best procedure to follow. The board is meeting Tuesday. If you put it on the agenda.
We plan on meeting next Tuesday, Council on Aging, Friends, and all the rest of that. We have some executive sessions. This board isn't really aware that this is happening yet, but yeah, we're posting a meeting for next Tuesday. It'll be 6 o'clock, not 5 o'clock.
No, as you know, we've been rebuilding the assessors department for the last 3 years, and we finally got
Can
it.
you get those lights to shut off at night?
Beg your pardon?
Can you get those lights to shut off at night? The assessor's office, I notice I go by at night and they're still on.
Really?
Yeah.
I would say that's a building maintenance issue, Charlie, which is the Board of Selectmen.
You had me cleaning toilets yesterday.
Hey, you had me shutting down the water for you.
And we put a sign that says, last person out shuts the lights off?
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
I think we're in good shape here. We're moving along on this thing. For the record, we've made it effective. She's already been filling in last week. We made it effective as of the beginning of this pay period, which was yesterday.
Good. So it's there.
We move on from there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Yep.
All right, I guess we'll move into Selectmen's report. Any reports?
No, I don't have anything.
The MPI committee met last week.
What committee?
About eight of us were present. We all gave reports, and they're going to,
What meeting?
a Master Planning Implementation Committee. We all handed in reports, and Hank Barton is going to compile them and send it to the Select Board. Greenway Negotiating Committee is still on track. They're still negotiating the final contract, and that's going well. And we have a Safety Complex Committee coming up, Charlie?
We had about a week or so.
Week or so? Okay.
All that got postponed because the snowstorm pushed the caucus, which pushed the meetings,
Yeah.
which backed us up with paperwork too.
So that's all I have.
Town Administrator's report?
Okay.
Yeah, just 1 second. Just wanted to say that the driveway committee, I think, is meeting again this Thursday at 7 o'clock. We're getting down to the end. So if anybody wants to join us, so we'll be, Dan, is it this room or is it upstairs?
Is it this Thursday? I think it's
Next Thursday, a week from this. Okay. Correct. So next week, I'm sorry. So we're getting down to the end of that. We have that just about wrapped up to bring to the board and then have you guys review it.
30th.
The 30th, yes. And just a reminder, tomorrow night, we have the meeting up at the Wilmington Norris School for the plowing of private roads.
7 o'clock?
7 o'clock, I believe.
It's an informational session
6 or
rather
7.
than
Can we verify that? Is it 6 or 7, Bob? The meeting tomorrow night.
I had 6.
Let's just make sure we're right here. I had both.
Oh.
I had 6 at Norris. And I had it down twice, so it must be right.
6 for tonight.
6.
6
o'clock. So 6 o'clock tomorrow at the Norris School for the plowing of private roads. We'll be talking about that. And been doing a lot of research, trying to figure out some of the roads that are listed as private and learning some new names, that's for sure. Old names that they have changed from Paradise Road to Brickyard Road Extension and
Oh.
Moose Brook Extension. But,
Interesting.
yeah, so it'll be an interesting meeting.
Town Administrator's report.
That's you.
Okay, that's me. The budget process for fiscal 2018 is well underway, as you know. I did distribute a first draft of expenses and revenues as we understand them now. And as you'll see in these are the numbers that were submitted to the town accountant, and these are in the spreadsheet that she typically uses. I added the column on the right and added a few numbers that were missing, basically making some rough guesses of what we'll see in terms of costs for the coming year, and then trying to estimate revenues, which we've already done, and trying to estimate where we are. I think the first thing we can say is that the town is not going to have a financial crisis. We can certainly afford to cover the expenses of existing departments and the existing level of service. The issue, I think, for the Board of Selectmen and the town meeting will be how many new initiatives will the town be able to allow in the budget process. The big one, of course, is the request for a second shift for the ALS ambulance service. There are also a very significant request for additional police services, and I put some very rough numbers in to estimate the cost for the Norris school budget. And I asked the principal tonight to let me know as soon as possible what the real numbers are. I was fairly generous with what I put there, so we'll see how that turns out. But as you can see, we do have to make some cuts. We can't accommodate all the requests that have been made, but we will certainly be able to provide for some new initiatives in the fiscal 18 budget.
Good.
So this sheet is a work in progress. It'll be updated as we get numbers and make numbers available. I'd also like the Board of Selectmen to set a date for submission of any articles for the annual town meeting warrant. Set a deadline, in other words. I have a number of requests already. I got another list in tonight for Community Preservation Committee, and as you can see on your, Charlie asked me to put the listing that we have on each of your agendas for each of our meetings between now and the annual town meeting. So we've got a number of articles already to go and to be prepared, but we need to set a deadline so we can put together a warrant and do it correctly and provide for explanation for the warrant articles as well as create the motions. And have time for the Board of Selectmen, obviously, to review and to post the warrant. So I'm suggesting if you do it on April 3rd, we have 2 weeks prior to May 16th, so you could do probably a special meeting as you did for January, towards the end of April, to make decisions on warrant articles in plenty of time for us to post.
Do I hear a motion? Warrants are closed
April 3rd?
April 3rd.
Now, what happens if something comes up that we want to add in? Is that
Well,
possible?
I think it's always the case that since the Board of Selectmen control the warrant,
Okay.
that we set the deadline for any submissions of citizens petitions or any articles from any departments or other entities. The selectmen can always add or subtract from the warrant right up to the time you post.
Okay. Based on that, I'll make the motion, we put April 3rd as the last day for submission of warrant articles for the annual town meeting.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Next, we had a meeting with the DIJ Consultants, Principal is John Jacobs, yesterday morning to discuss the classification and compensation study, which is still with the Personnel Policies and Procedures Board. In a discussion with the board chair here, we're looking to bring the final product before the Board of Selectmen on April the 18th, or any other time that you would suggest, but that's what Charlie suggested that I put down. So,
We have to put some closure on this thing. It's been out there for several months now. It doesn't mean that we're going to institute the stuff that's in there, but it means that we're satisfied with the report.
And we'll close that part of it out.
We'll close that part of it out, and we'll work
Yep.
forward
Yep.
on the rest of it.
yep,
April 18th?
that would be your meeting.
Yeah,
That's our meeting.
yeah.
April 18th, then we get to town meeting, elections coming up right after that.
Mm.
Should we do it right after the elections?
If we do it after the elections, then we don't know the demographics of how this board's gonna be. And I'd much rather let the people that have been here work on the project that they've been working on. Does that, you follow the logic behind that?
That makes sense.
Okay.
So you need a motion for this?
I think so.
Okay, so I'll make a motion, we put it on the April 18th agenda to make a decision and close the project as far as the consultant goes.
Second.
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
We now have two requests from companies that do solar projects on land. One from Ty and Bond came in today.
Really?
So I'll forward that one to you tomorrow. Apparently, this town is attractive for solar apps, and we probably don't have time to address this prior to the town meeting, but right after town meeting,
After town meeting, because that's when it'll slow down again.
like to be able to give a response.
Bob, let me know when we get applications for solar at sea.
Solar apps at sea?
At sea.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Not in Southampton, Charlie.
Yeah.
I was distinguishing on land from rooftops. Plumbing problems.
We don't have plumbing problems.
We do have what amounts to a serious problem here.
Yes.
This week, we had more overflows. We had to call the plumbing company for the second time, and the bill was $488. This follows similar incident about a month ago when we had to pay $330-some. The plumbing company gave me a video that they did of the pipes. They actually put a camera in the pipes. The pipe is a Y pipe. It comes from both ladies' and men's rooms, so we don't know where the problem comes from, but we do know what causes the problem. It's not any paper that you find in the restrooms. These are these wipes. So someone apparently carries a box of these things into the restroom, and they will not go through our plumbing system. So,
Swear to God.
now,
I haven't been here.
the town's now bouncing up on $1,000 to address these problems, so it's
I do the table.
getting fairly serious. And so this is what we think. It's certainly been discussed with department heads and others around the building. Everyone in the building knows about the problem and what the problem is. What we think is that either a regular visitor to the building or someone who serves on a board or a committee who is not aware of the problem. We don't think there's something malicious going on. Someone not aware, they come in and they put those wipes down the system, and they cause the problem. And yesterday, well, I don't think any of you but Charlie were here.
Okay.
We had, it was a flood. It was a flood.
And now that you say that, the flood,
And Charlie was the only one here.
with a room directly below,
Yes. And
a room directly below the bathrooms
Yes.
is where we keep all our records.
Their vault.
It's our vault, and there's just boxes of all our files.
We had the highway department moving materials
Yes,
down
that's a
the cellar,
problem.
while Gary Swanson and I shut the mains off for the building, so that we could find the main where the branch line to shut the toilet system down. And the floor drains didn't work because they were plugged,
And how do they get plugged, aren't they?
because they're tied to the sewer line.
Oh, jeez.
Because everything's common, so it all, so it was like, okay, if you spilled water on the floor, it's got no place to go except spread out through the building.
Are we posting a sign or something?
Well, that's it.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to try and post a sign for the public
For the public, though.
when they come into the building to
Yeah.
just let them know.
I personally, and I've spoken to a few people that work here, I think we've reached the point of locking the bathrooms. And if you need to use the bathroom, you go to an office and get a key.
So then you bring your wipes in with you? I mean, how's that going to stop people
can
from
hide
bringing
them.
wipes?
It's going to get them to think about, there's a problem. Because this has been going on for a month and a half now.
Well, Velda just hung signs, because she came into the COA and hung a sign. It's nice, it's big, it's laminated, it says, "Do not flush your wipes down the
But
toilet."
she did that a week or two ago, and so we still got the problem.
I didn't see
We can't
that.
afford to be dropping $400 every other week to have the plumber come out, and then have some of us volunteering our time to bail the Titanic out.
Has anybody thought about maybe fixing could the Y be replaced with something that would actually handle this? And it would,
Yeah, exactly.
just asking.
We have an expert coming up to
I don't know about an expert, Jim Cini, High Street. I work with veterans, and I actually talk with a lot of veterans who've, come back from Iraq and Afghanistan, and it's going to sound strange, but they're big users of, and that's from not being able to shower. And so it's starting to become, a lot of people are using these, and I don't think folks realize that it's not just here. You shouldn't be putting those in your septic, and we're a septic town. And so I think, I would suggest this is an education, so not only a sign in the bathroom, do not put your wipes, but an explanation why. I would lay it out, because it's causing problems with our septic and our sewer and flooding, and so people might just ignore, oh, it's just one wipe.
It's not one.
These wipes are not for septic systems. Never mind your plumbing. If you get through the plumbing and you're lucky, that's great. Now what's going to happen with the new septic? Then
Well, it's like here, there's a lift station, so the next thing it does is it meets the pump.
Right.
And the impellers and the pump and everything else, and because it's not tissue paper,
Right. So I think a sign's a great idea, but it needs to be more. They need to really get the message that your one little wipe is a problem. Just a suggestion.
Right.
all right, Jackie, I want a metal detector.
I don't have any in my bag.
I don't-
Check my bag.
I don't know.
All right, I'm just mentioning this to the board and the public, that it's getting expensive, and we have to address it.
Yeah, this can't continue because we can't afford this.
So tell your friends.
Because we all need a little,
No
little
wait time.
laughter. I bought a place a few years ago that was used as a rental property, and over the toilet, there was a little sign that says, "Except for toilet paper, don't flush anything down here you haven't eaten already."
I don't think I'm ready for that, but
When I saw the sign, I just had to keep laughing, saying, creativity there.
Yeah.
Good golly.
do you want to take and have Belden and staff post a,
Hey, we need to post signs when you come in the building.
Does that code red?
And I was thinking, I asked today for the emails of as many board committee members as we have, so that we can send out a blanket message to all of them, in case it's a member of a town committee that meets periodically. Okay. Community Compact Program, That,
The pump system.
This is a pump system.
Oh, it is. So it goes
Oh,
into
yeah.
a sewage pump and...
It goes into a pump station.
we pump up,
and we
or-
pump up.
Okay, well,
Okay.
so I had a meeting
The
with,
septic system in this building.
okay. I did have a meeting with Kyle Hauser of AEG, East Long Meadow. They are the company that conducted the audit of 3 town buildings, PD, Fire Department, and Highway. And we're going to restart this program. This program is oriented toward meeting former governor's goal of 20% reduction in energy. And so they're going to conduct an audit of this building and make other recommendations, possibly including streetlights and options that we might have to get to that 20% reduction. As you know, the data that they gather is posted in a data bank run by the University of Massachusetts. And I sent you today access to it. The website, as well as how you log in if you want to take a look at the data. It's only 3 buildings at this point, however. It's not, and this one is probably has a lot of gain if we find out where we can best and meet the goal. And this is going to blend right in with green communities and getting some grants to do some things to bring down energy use. And green communities, I should have taken that off because I mentioned that to you last time. We're moving ahead with that. We hope to get the paperwork done and get certified in the fall of this year.
Good.
Upcoming meetings, we've just scheduled executive sessions for the 28th, and now I'm going to be adding some open session items. We also have regular meetings April 4th and April 18th. Public meeting, as you know, on private ways tomorrow night. Department heads meet tomorrow, March the 22nd at 10 a.m. Finance team is continuing to meet on Monday nights at 5:30. I had scheduled the Norris School for next Monday and the Highway Department for the following Monday, but we'll reverse those. Annual town meeting May 16th, and that's the report.
Very good. I'm going to open up new business. The first thing this board needs to do...
Oh, yes, yeah. I have new business. Emergency snow declaration.
Can I jump in with one first?
Absolutely. Sure.
This board met and voted to authorize an MOU with the church, and
Yes.
we need to do that vote in open session. Basically, we've established a contract with the church that we will we'll plow the parking lot because the church provides the town with numerous services, and this is sort of a payment in kind. That contract is now signed and implemented. I want to read a letter from the church to the Board of Selectmen. On behalf of the congregation, please accept our gratitude for working with us to manage parking lot and winter maintenance. First Congregation Church of Southampton has been a beacon of light and a gathering space for almost 275 years, and we are honored to be part of this beautiful town. Town residents and our church participants, as well as 5 scout troops, the Women's Club, Southampton Community Chorus, the Norris School PTO, Weight Watchers, yoga classes, and many other local organizations benefit from having safe winter access to places to park for sledding and the building. As you know, the hill next to this is actually town property, and we provide that for the residents for sliding in that also. Thank you for all you do for the good of the residents and the ways that you make this town a wonderful place to live. Signed, Reverend Jennifer Valentine, pastor. That was a nice positive note. Now we'll move on to snow emergencies.
Okay, the snow budget.
Take a vote on that, you said?
Yes, I'm sorry, you're absolutely right. I need a motion to verify the contract.
It's a memo of understanding, MOU, you said?
Right.
Okay, not a contract. Okay.
still need a motion to,
What do you want the motion to say?
that you basically ratify the agreement.
Oh, so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Just
Aye.
a discussion.
Discussion.
All right, discussion.
Just to clarify to the folks out there, this is just for plowing and sanding, has nothing to do with repairs to the parking lot.
That's
Right.
correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. I just wanted to make it a record in public because we came out of executive
And
session.
Charlie, there's that other letter to read. I don't know when you're going to read that letter from Doug.
You want to read that?
No, he asked to have it read at the next meeting. I just saw
Well,
that.
go
in the
for
email.
it.
No, go ahead.
No, I don't have it in front of me. You have it in front of you.
No, it was given to everybody.
Well, I understand that, but
Okay, I'm going to read this, because nobody else seems to want to.
Go for it.
It's dated March 6th, 2017, to Board of Selectmen. Please read this at the next Board of Selectmen meeting. On Thursday, March 2nd, 2017, at approximately 8 o'clock at night, I was coming home to 99 Crooked Ledge Road. When I got to my driveway, to my surprise, a huge tree was down and blocking the whole road. Upon entering my house, I called the police department to advise them of the problem. It seemed like within 15 minutes, a crew from the highway department was cleaning up the fallen tree. I was shocked at the great response time. I wish at this time to gratefully compliment both the police and highway departments for their professionalism. Yes, I am a grateful taxpayer. Doug Blanchard, 99 Crooked Ledge Road, Southampton, Mass. Thank you, Mr. Blanchard.
We're all in shock, right? We're not accustomed to do.
Are you speechless now, Charlie? I don't hear
Yeah.
Well, we probably all know Mr. Blanchard, and that's not unusual for him to come out and say something nice.
Doug has been like that as long as I can remember.
Yeah, me too.
All right.
The snow and ice budget for fiscal 17 is depleted. Under state law, the Highway Department can be authorized to deficit spend to clear snow and ice any future storms. The law changed in November of 2016. It used to require a vote of the Board of Selectmen. Now it simply requires a declaration by the Chief Administrative Officer. So I prepared the letter under Chapter 44, Section 31D of the Mass General Laws, amended November 17, 2016. I hereby authorize expenditures for snow and ice operations in excess of the appropriation for fiscal 2017. All expenditures made in excess of the annual appropriation should be certified by the Board of Assessors. If the deficit cannot be offset at the annual town meeting or through any other means, the deficit amount shall be included in the annual tax recap in fiscal 2018. So if we have more winter weather and we have to spend more to clear snow and ice, the Highway Department is authorized to do so. Whatever deficit we have at the end of this fiscal year, we will try to cover with transfers at the annual town meeting or using the 60-day transfer device. If we can't cover it at the end of this fiscal year, it gets covered on the tax recap, and that means there's less money available for the fiscal 18 budget. So this is not anything out of the ordinary, but this is the correct process for.
Do you have a dollar amount that we're at about now?
Yeah, we sent that out in an email,
Oh, okay, so I
so
got,
it's somewhere floating.
okay.
It did go out. What I heard from Randall was, is we don't have another major storm and stuff, we should be okay.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, yeah.
Yeah.
We were supposed to hear from HCOG, from the Hampshire County.
Is there anybody here for them?
No. I was told that someone would be here,
Okay.
so.
There was someone walking back and forth in the hallway that was on the Greenway Committee.
That was Mike Bueller.
You want to see if he's...
Oh, Mike Miller, yeah.
See if he's coming in? The other topic was the town administrator's job description. We got a draft back from the personnel board a couple of weeks ago. We sort of tweaked it around and everything, and I sent it back to everyone. I would like to get that approved by us in the next meeting or two at least, because the screening committee is going to need that to get that going. So I guess this is sort of like a fair warning that maybe we should put that on the agenda for next week to finalize that.
Absolutely.
Town administrator's job description,
So they have copies, and you're going to finalize it next week?
next week, yeah. That'll give personnel one more meeting in case they have a concern, or a little bit of time to look at it.
And are we meeting with the committee next week or the week after?
So do we have a full meeting next week?
It went
Turning
from,
into a full
Because
meeting.
it went from like a short little,
Next week.
It's getting, they
Yeah.
grow.
Because if we go forward with the consultants tonight,
so I don't know if hopefully we can approve it next week, and then Bob can make the changes and forward it to the committee after we meet with them, sometimes during the week, yeah. Okay.
all right. The next topic is the Greenway Committee, at which time I must excuse myself because of an appearance of conflict. And we have a quorum here, so there's no necessity for me to stand here or sit here or whatever.
We're not going to make any decisions tonight, are we?
I don't want the appearance to be questioned down the road 6
Got it.
months from now. Someone says that I looked at somebody the wrong way.
All right. Want to give me a coffee while you're out there?
Coffee, anything you want?
Okay.
Coffees.
Slice. Mr. Bueller, how are you?
Don't even look at them.
So I'll close the door.
No, you can't do that.
Just
It
kidding.
was hot in here when we came in, now it's cold.
I know.
You want to introduce yourself?
I do. Mike Bueller, 88 High Street, and Chair of the Southampton Greenway Committee. And actually, we are, well, I'll provide a very quick update about where we're at, and then we're actually hoping for 2 decisions based on 2 recommendations we have. As we've talked about periodically over the years, for some time we had a bit of a holdup with the railroad vis-a-vis getting permission to do our due diligence on the rail corridor. We have, with the help of, as we described to you a month or 2 ago, we seem to have broken through that deadlock with the help of our elected representatives, and now have their, so far, verbal blessing to proceed with both a Phase 1 environmental review of the corridor and an examination of the 2 bridges and 11 some odd culverts on the corridor. So accordingly, I have here 2 proposals that we would like to recommend for your approval. The environmental review is a very modest piece of work, so we simply approach Tybon directly and have a modest quote from them, which we're very comfortable with. Because the structural examination was a slightly larger piece of work, we put out a request to 3 firms for proposals, and we received 2. And we felt that both, and I have copies here, we felt that both proposals were competent, and the one, again, from Ty and Bond was modestly less expensive. I think the delta was maybe $1,250. So I'm happy to show you the proposals that we want to recommend for approval, and then figure out from you what we actually need to do to, get them approved, signed, and so on. And that's just reflecting my own inexperience with this kind of procurement.
Okay. Well, speaking of procurement, from a procurement point of view, Bob, did they work with you on these proposals?
They did.
They follow Chapter 30B? And
Absolutely.
Okay.
I had, in fact, sent out the RFP to 3 firms, BHB, Ty and Bond, and Fuss O'Neill.
Okay.
And was in touch with them. I believe Fuss O'Neill withdrew?
They did.
They did.
Well, we never got a formal withdrawal, but they went
I got an email saying we're not
silent.
going to bid, yes. So
you want to
process followed has been correct.
So you want to go with the lowest quote?
I'm sorry, repeat
So
that.
you want to go with the lowest quote that you...
So again, for the environmental review, because the grand total is $2,900,
Yeah.
we just requested a quote from
Right, that's okay.
Ty
yeah.
Bond. So, but with regard to the other one, we have competing proposals from Ty Bond and VHB.
Okay.
And again, they both appeared competent.
I didn't catch that.
They both appeared competent, and
Okay.
they're
Are they both
well-reputed
the same
firms.
price, or? Who was?
Again, there was a gap of about $1,250. The Ty Bond proposal was $12,750. VHB was $14,000.
Okay, so that's, you want to go with the low one anyways.
Again, they both addressed our
Sure.
request,
Okay,
and they're both well-reputed firms, so we had no particular concerns.
okay.
So once, assuming we get these signed and sealed, we will then need to finalize I'm just going to call it an access agreement with the railroad. We have the text of that in place. It's just awaiting dates in which the agreement will hold, and we'll probably provide a 3-month window to allow these firms access to the corridor for that amount of time. So we get these approved, we finalize that agreement with the railroad, and then we're at last off to the races with doing some due diligence. Once that, assuming there are no major surprises from the due diligence, the next step will be then to negotiate see if we can finalize what's called a rail banking agreement.
Yep.
With
What's
the
it called?
rail banking
Okay.
agreement with the railroad. And it's something we discussed a little bit at our previous, I believe, the last time I appeared before this group.
Mm-hmm.
So that's roughly where it's at. Can I want to look at these documents? Again, I don't know how this group...
Where's the funding coming from, Bob?
We've received $37,000 in change from community prepreservation.
Okay, so
at the
that's
last
part
town
of that.
meeting. So, and that was explicitly for
Okay.
this kind of expert support from the outside. And the funds.
A legitimate use of
Yep.
community preservation.
Okay,
Yeah.
if it's coming from that funding,
So
that's
it's
already in
funded,
place.
and this is just the final piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you want from us?
Well, actually, I need you to tell me what you need from me. Again, because of my inexperience with procurement, I have copies of both the Ty Bond proposals here. Again, one for the Phase 1 environmental review, one for the structural review. They need, there are 3 pages of legal boilerplate. We did not feel it, I read through it, but as non-experts, we didn't feel it was our place to assess that.
Yep.
So I need your guidance about how to deal with that 3 pages of boilerplate, which appears identical in both proposals. And then B, I just need to understand the process for getting these signed back to those firms.
We need a contract, obviously, and we need to go through the...
I think we should have it quickly reviewed by council.
Yep.
Give members of the board electronic copies for them to read.
Yep.
And we can probably get it wrapped up and on the agenda for signing next week.
Now, I know you're interim, so I'm not sure if you're using the purchase order process that was set up by Heather in the past?
No.
Okay. So we're not going to issue a purchase order, we'll issue a signed contract.
Signed contract.
Okay. So you need to get that to Bob, Mike, electronic form, hopefully.
Sure. And should I be,
You'll copy us.
the members of the select
Yeah.
board?
And you'll get legal to take a look.
Yeah, we can use the purchase order process, it's just that this would be the first instance where we would want to use it. I need to get familiar with it, I guess, if we're going
Yeah,
to
it's
use
just
it.
anything over 500, I believe, if I remember
Right.
correctly.
Yeah.
So if I get copies, email copies, I'll forward them to you, I'll forward it to town council, and I would hope we can get it done in time for next week. If not, it'll be in time for the following meeting of the board.
So do I need to appear before this board again at your next meeting, or?
No, I think we'll just put it on the agenda.
On the agenda.
If there are no objections from council.
We're not voting, you guys, your committee already voted on it, right, Mike?
Yes.
Right.
You're
So
just signing the contract.
You just
We're gonna
bring
sign
the
it.
contract forward
Signing
to us.
contract.
We need to sign it, yeah, but I think we should have a vote of support on that, too.
You can always vote and approve.
Yeah.
Okay.
Take
that's
all the
fine.
love we can get. Long haul.
But it's almost over, right?
We're easing toward the end of the beginning.
Yeah.
Do you know how many years it's been since?
I prefer not to think about it.
Oh, yeah.
At least 20 years.
No, oh, since
Since it began,
since
since
the-
they've
yes,
started?
I'm told it began in the early
Yep.
90s,
I
long
forget-
before we were here in town.
Gentleman's name, his first name was Tim, who started it, yeah. But anyways,
My involvement dates to '07,
Yeah, and I
which
know
is long
April,
enough for me.
April worked so hard on this, too.
Oh, I'm thinking about getting her back down the road, so
Yeah, that'd be
I
great.
know where she is.
So should we vote on this, or should we?
we don't need to vote on, we need to find out about the contract, the legal part of it.
Yeah,
We'll
let
bring it
me
back to
send you the
next meeting.
contracts, and you
Then we
can
vote
look
on
them
the
over.
contract next meeting.
If town council has any comment, I can keep you posted. Otherwise, I'm not even sure you need the vote, you can just sign.
Right, and we don't want to do it
Vote, that's
anyways
fine.
before we have legal look at it.
Right.
Right,
exactly.
absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll bring it back to next week's meeting, hopefully all ready to go.
Great. So for my future reference, who then, when we get an invoice, I assume those invoices will come to me, I assume, but I don't know that. Who actually,
Send them to our office, and we will process them.
okay, so I'm not, God forbid, I'm not signing checks or anything.
No, no.
Okay. Can I provide any other information at this point about where we're at?
Any questions? That's good news, though.
Yeah, I think it's very news.
Yeah, so I do want to emphasize, I know this has gone on and on and on. It's probably, I'm sure it's more painful for me than you. But this is just, again, with the help of our elected representatives, we've actually just getting the right to do this basic due diligence on the property, and their commitment to quickly negotiate a rail banking agreement with us. It's a very big deal. And I really believe that we are near the end of this first phase. And again, once we have it, then the real fun begins. So, thank you very much. As always, I appreciate the support.
Thank you.
Take care.
You send Charlie in when you walk by him out there.
I'll get them.
Charlie, yeah.
You want to read?
HCOG is
Take
here.
care of
Okay, so while Charlie's out there,
Oh, yeah, no, I have a copy.
Bob,
Okay.
you want to talk about the increase limit for the senior tax work-off?
I will.
Shannon submitted this, so I'll get Charlie, and she can.
Yep, I think he's going to grab them out there.
John, do you have time for comment?
Well,
You're on a schedule, right?
we're on a schedule, but Charlie's not here, so we can open up for a couple minutes of public time.
If I may.
Nobody minds?
No.
Oh,
Sure,
my
go
name is
ahead.
Bill Erickson, and I was just chosen tonight to be on the search committee, but I have questions for the whole process
Yep.
about how you did it. I have some misgivings, because I heard Kathy Conrad, I know her, I saw her outside, and, you know, my misgivings are if somehow that selection was made based on who knew who, I would feel pretty bad about that.
Yep.
And I don't know if the select board had what we call in education, a rubric or something that you went by that helped you decide who from that list of names, by the way, that I couldn't read, who, you know, how that all happened. I think then and there you decided on the process for a straw vote or whatever for the town employees. So I guess what I'm saying is I hope that you considered the applications of the people, all of the people who did that. And I wouldn't want to think for a second that I presume to be here only because you know me or think you know me.
That could either be a positive or a negative with people, seriously, you know. Yeah.
Well, that's reassuring, because I have this thing about not knowing how you're going to decide anything before you get to that point, as opposed to after the fact. And it applies to how your consultant helps the committee make decisions about whom to choose, how you even, for that matter, choose the consultant. If you've talked about that, what are you looking for? And maybe it's all embedded in whatever they present to you or have provided in writing. But I just trying to make my point for that's the kind of process that I would hope you do all the time. Okay?
I think one of the issues we found out tonight is we didn't realize people were invited to say something about themselves.
Yes, well, I didn't.
And that was
I
really
don't
too
want to nag
bad.
about that, but I wasn't sure.
That was really too bad. But we got information on everybody, their applications, resumes, if they had them. I know I personally went online and Googled names just to see what would come up, so that's how I got my information.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
So thanks for coming forward.
Thank you. Well, we didn't question anybody.
We're on the senior tax work-off program.
All right, can we go backwards one, because there's one thing that I skipped over by accident, and that's the old business, the ballot question for the annual town election. according to Mass General Law, Chapter Section 6D,
Okay.
removal of ice and snow from public ways. Town attorney is still reviewing this. We are under the belief that we need 200 people to sign a petition to get this on the ballot.
Yeah.
But when I spoke to the town clerk told me that she is going to need this one way or the other by this coming Monday. Okay? To put it on the ballot, she's going to need this by this coming Monday.
200 signatures by Monday?
Right. One of the reasons of having the meeting tomorrow was to
Alrighty.
move that forward. I don't know if we have the authority. Town attorney is researching it right now, but I think this board should take a vote to put this on the town election ballot. If we don't have the authority, nothing comes of it. But if we do, and we don't get the 200 votes, it'll still end up on the ballot.
So you want to take a vote just in case we can override the fact that we don't have the 200?
Right.
When will the town attorney know? I mean, I'm a little...
I don't know if I want to do that.
Well, I think the town attorney won't know for a day or two.
Yeah.
So what if we vote on it at next week's meeting?
It'll be the day after, too
The day
late.
after, yeah.
After too late.
Because it has to be done on Monday?
It's like
Statute
Shakespeare.
language is unclear.
Pardon me?
Statute language is unclear. I mean, you control the ballot. It doesn't say that, it doesn't specifically authorize the select board to do this, but it clearly is not prohibited either. So town council did not have an answer when we raised the question.
So a motion would be predicated on town council coming back to us saying it was legitimate for us to do it.
Well, if you agree to send it to the ballot, and town council says you don't have that authority, well, it's moot. If, in fact, town council says you have the authority, and the 200 signatures are not presented, then it goes to the ballot. So,
If this board wants to see this on the ballot.
All right, so I'll make the motion then that we do it that way. If we don't get the signatures to have the petition, that we'll sign off on it and put it on the ballot. But if it comes back from town council saying, no, that we can't do that, then it won't happen.
Right.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Is that, I'll second it for conversation. Is that enough language to cover what we need to cover? Okay.
yes.
'Cause
Discussion?
well, my only fear is that we're doing something we can't. So as long as it's clear, we're only
If I put
doing
enough
it
wording in there?
predicated on waiting for legal.
Yeah,
If legal
exactly.
says it's
We don't
not
need
legal.
somebody else coming saying we're doing something illegal.
Right,
Contingent, right.
but I don't want us to miss the vote on it either.
Yeah, no, that's,
That's why I brought it up.
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
No,
okay.
it's important to have on there. That's the key. Okay.
Two consultants over here.
Do I hear a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
All right, okay, so be it.
Okay.
Okay, next topic is going to be increasing limit for the senior tax work off program.
Okay, so that's me. I'm going to talk on that.
That's you? Okay.
Yep. So currently, the senior tax work-off, it goes up to $750. They can volunteer in the town. It's credited at $9 an hour. So the state has just increased it from $1,000 to $1,500. So we weren't even doing the minimum of what the state allows. So I would like the select board to consider raising that to the $1,500, because it has to be approved by us to say yes, that we will raise it. Because I did call, I sent you you all have a copy of the email. I did call Emmett on that and talk to him on what was the procedure. Did I have to go to town meeting or whatever? And he said, no, we can agree on it as a board whether or not we want to increase it.
A quick question, that $9 amount, is that regulated at all?
Yeah, that's all by the state.
So is that $9 what
That's
is
how it's
current
written,
right
yeah.
now? Okay.
Yep.
No disrespect to you, but is the Council on Aging Board requesting this?
I didn't even run it by them, to be honest with you, because they all get a copy of this email.
I think that they should be the ones requesting that.
Okay.
Why do you ask that?
Because one of the problems we're having is the complaints that that board isn't functioning properly.
Yep.
Well, this is one of their charges.
This is a day-to-day operation, and that's what they're not privy to do. They're not to be doing day-to-day operations. This is it. This comes in as an email blast to all of the COAs and all of the directors. So that's who implements everything in the offices to the seniors.
Right, but you would, as an employee, report to them, this has come to them. They, as a board, would come to this board to request this. I'm trying to get more interaction with them.
Okay. I mean, there's a few extra steps in there that we don't need to do, but if that's the way you want it to be done, then that's fine.
Well, it's up to the board, not me. I'm just pointing out my thoughts about this.
The other side is, how does this affect our taxes? I'm going to say it probably doesn't
There's only
much.
1 to 2 people who do it every year.
Okay.
So I'm hoping that this would, you do not.
So, and you've got time, because this would be effective in the new fiscal year.
Right,
Correct.
right.
So you've got till July 1 to
Right.
make a decision.
So having the COA board come with a recommendation, and I'd just like the folks here at the town hall to chime in that appropriately, maybe Janine in the assessor's office, just to see.
They knew I was bringing it to the board today.
Right.
I
It'd
went
be
down
nice,
to the assessor's office.
nice for support. I think it's a great thing if we can give the folks.
I have nothing against this. I'm just
No, I
trying to
understand.
get that board more involved in.
No, we understand. We don't disagree with you. Now.
So, do I hear a motion to table this to our next, well, it'll have to be our second meeting, because they're not meeting until the 5th. So this will be the 18th.
But again, it doesn't go into effect till July 1.
Right, so
And do we really need a motion? Just put it on the agenda
Yeah.
for the 18th?
that's fine. I'm just making sure everybody's on the same page here.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Shannon.
You're welcome.
There's no personnel forms, no licenses, correct?
No, correct.
All right. I signed one warrant last week, W17-37 for March 16th, 2017, for $457,668.25. It's a matter of record. Just so the board knows, there is a warrant that needs to be signed tomorrow. I will not be available to sign it. It's in the town treasurer's office. All we need is one signature. So anybody that's
I'll do
in
it. I'm
town,
here.
you want to do it? Okay, so there's one out there for that. Once you do that, make a photocopy of the front page, give it to Bob or Velda so they can put it in the minutes, so our next meeting, we just read it in. That said, there's no minutes to be approved. Our calendar is tomorrow, the private way meeting at the Norris School at what time?
6 o'clock.
6
6
o'clock.
o'clock. Please attend. Selectmen's meetings there's one next week. What's the date?
That'll be the 28th,
28th. Then there's a meeting on the 4th. and a
4th of
meeting on
April, and the 18th of April.
The 18th, yep. Articles for annual town meeting. Glendale Road project. Have you spoken to DOT about that? There was an email a couple of days ago asking if we needed help on the article.
I didn't receive that.
All right, I suspected that, that's why we haven't,
Okay.
but it bounced to me. They seem to have a tendency of bouncing stuff to my personal email a lot. MGL certification, clerk, finance department heads, financial department heads, non-criminal ticketing, police department, that's at town council.
That's with town council, and they promised to have a revised article available in time for the annual town meeting.
Okay. Donation of land, Brickyard Road Extension, Howland. My understanding is that's gone through community preservation, and that they have an attorney hired from the Conservation Commission to move that forward. The land taking at Coleman Road, we're working with the water department on that. Right to farm bylaw, we have that. Need to tweak it though, because I see some typos in it. And we're back to the water department articles. The marijuana bylaw. There's activity going on
Yes.
with all this. It's not my area of expertise.
I will be able to put together a bylaw in time for you to review it. There are 3 or 4 models available now, including one that's from KP Law, our law firm. I note today in the paper that apparently the state is looking at $100 million in revenue. They may make an adjustment in the split between town and state in terms of the revenue for this. I think what I'll need to know from the Board of Selectmen is, do you simply want to have a moratorium? I believe sales will be authorized as of July 1st, 2018. So do you want a moratorium for a longer period of time? Or do you want a bylaw that would authorize sales of marijuana in certain zones or certain parts of town? So, or do you want to throw open the doors and
have at it?
have at it? Yeah.
My personal opinion is we have a moratorium until 2018, so
Yes.
it gives our planning board time to react to this. I don't know how the board feels, but
Now, I'm not sure what the law reads, but I know the planning board in the past has had a moratorium on it and then extended it, and I believe we hit the limit, and then it expired. Can we put another moratorium?
yeah.
Okay, I just don't know the legality of that.
Well, we're now under the state moratorium,
Okay.
and any town action would presumably take effect as soon as you enact it, but I would think you'd make it effective July 1, 2018 and beyond. So
That'll give us time through the winter to put up a bylaw to be adopted in May of next year, to be a bylaw for the town relative to this topic.
So there's a little less urgency than I originally thought.
Now, this split you're talking about, this $100 million split with the state and local communities, what is that split at currently? You said they're going to modify it?
They're going to modify it off the top. I can't remember what the division would be. My guess is the state's going to take more and give cities and towns less. So,
Yeah. No surprise.
Sounds about right.
but, you know,
Oh, yeah, it's standard.
with Holyoke wanting to be the Saudi Arabia of cannabis, whether the town likes it or not, apparently there's going to be some more activity here than in many other areas. So,
And if you have a moratorium, are they going to not, we're not going to benefit from that because of the moratorium? I don't know how that's going to affect that.
I don't think it's gonna affect it one way, my personal opinion, it's not gonna affect it one way or the other, because the reality of it is, we need to have bylaws or zoning regulations as to what's acceptable in town,
And where to put them, exactly.
and this
I
is
understand
giving
that.
the planning board some time to work on that.
Yep.
And the Board of Health is also working on their end of it, but I haven't gotten any official feedback yet. But that, I don't believe, is gonna be a bylaw to the town. I think our moratorium is gonna be the trigger so that everybody's got this coming year to work on this.
Perfect. And you have bylaws that...
I have
other
4
communities-
models now.
4 model bylaws, okay.
The original one I sent out to the board was approved by the AG's office, what, a couple of months ago or so? So this has happened, this is, you know,
Okay. Perfect. It's something good to start with if you have 4 model ones that
For plenty of time.
yeah.
made it through vetting of the legal. Good.
Green community applications, I guess that's on hold, isn't it? Till October?
we're not able to become certified until, I believe, October. We will be preparing the paperwork, and there is, oddly enough, grant money available to have a consultant put together the final paperwork for the town to become certified in the fall. So I've already talked with the Springfield Regional Office about getting a small grant for that purpose, and I've already been contacted by a local consultant who does this work. So I can't believe that the paperwork can be that complicated.
Yeah.
We've been told in the meeting that I had 2 weeks ago that of the 5 criteria, we are in compliance. So
We're just...
We're just
file.
waiting, we're waiting out
Paperwork,
the
yeah.
time period.
Yeah.
But it'd be nice to get the certificate and,
So my question to you is, are we going to put articles in front of town meeting?
No,
Okay, so then we should just strike this.
okay.
The next one is authorization to install a heating wire for ice dams on the roof of this town hall. We don't have any outlets hooked to this building. The hope was to get some money out of the budget to take and be able to put the heating units out there, so we don't have this reoccurring problem every winter. That was gonna be part of the solution to the Greenway grants, but the problem, not the Greenway, but the Green.
green
grants.
communities, yeah.
Yeah, but we didn't fall into the time period, so I don't think wiring it's gonna be a lot of money. What the real money is gonna be is actually putting the actual coils on the roof. But if we can at least get the outlets set up there, we'll get something to work for. Am I making sense to you?
Yeah, but I have a question.
Sure.
Do those heating wires cause a fire hazard?
To my understanding, no.
I don't think they get that hot.
Just curious.
No, I've never, and I've been working with fire departments for years, and that's not been the issue. The issue is, you got two types of wires to take in, and I'm not an expert. You notice I preface everything I say that I'm not an expert, but basically, if you take and put a 15 amp circuit up there that's got a ground fault in it, and there's two types of wires. You have the type that have a thermostat control and they regulate themselves, and then you have the other type that you have to send somebody up there to manually put the switch on and manually shut it off. That's been a problem with a lot of municipal buildings for years, because they put them on and they'd run all summer.
Oh.
Because nobody had the foresight that, oh, maybe it's time to shut them off.
So you're gonna shut them off?
Well, when I'm
You
cleaning
do
the
the plumbing
toilets
when you're
and
at- when
everything
you're at
else,
the building.
everyone's like,
Why not?
at least I know why.
It's too bad if you would have increased my limit, you probably could have got a little more.
I could have gotten a little more, yeah.
I was gonna say, I looked into those for my house,
Yeah.
and they're very expensive to run.
Oh, yeah, they're not cheap. The
So
problem with
you
this
can
is,
only put them on when it's really coming down.
I don't know if you can see this, but there's actually water damage at the peak
Yeah, oh
of
yeah,
that
I've
roof
seen
over
the
there.
water damage.
There's water damage in the
Yeah.
hallway, and it's all because of the ice dams. And, you know, we have to do something to try to deal with that.
Yeah.
And this is a least expensive approach. CPC transfer to fund legal documents for donation of land to the Conservation Commission. All right, well, that's basically that
Right.
Holland property and all that. We're going to need a new police cruiser. The cruiser that we had, rear end broke. They fixed it, patched it, but the fear is it's not gonna last long. We're probably gonna be looking to take a loan out to take and replace this, so you'll see this at town meeting. The fire department's going to need to replace their ambulance. I believe there's funding there with the ambulance account, so that'll be able to just, you're not looking at the general revenue to deal with that. Dog bylaw amendments, evidently our bylaw committee is. finding
Yes,
some-
town clerk gave me some amendments yesterday.
Conservation's asking for a new bylaws on the Wetlands Protection Act. That's quite long. Is that on the website so people can read it?
No.
That might be something to put on the website.
Question, going back to the police department vehicle.
Yeah.
I thought I remember they were looking into leasing.
Leasing was at 6%. Us borrowing money is at 1%.
That's like a no-brainer.
So the treasurer's office was advising us that we were better off if we just,
Okay. So the cost of money was a lot more expensive.
yeah.
Okay.
Now, Bob, I know we have on the agenda the meeting for the screening committee.
Yes, I see representatives of, the board selected me to contact the public sector search firms, and I've contacted 3. I see representatives of 2 here tonight. Bernard Lynch is here of Community Paradigm Associates, and I also see Mary Arcardi of the UMass Collins Center, over to the right, both. So,
So,
I did contact MMA Consulting. I don't see anyone here. And I think I informed the board that Mark Morris, the principal there, said that he does a lot of assessment centers and seemed to have a lot of work and probably wouldn't be interested.
so my question to the board is, how would you like to proceed, seeing it was pointed out to me that the way we proceeded before was poor?
Let's hear them speak about themselves and their qualifications and what they think the job would entail.
Heads or tail?
I'm going to take a quick 5.
All right.
Doesn't matter to me.
We're gonna do a 5-minute recess, only because some of us have been here for a few hours. 5 minutes. You now have a discussion with the Hampshire County
Council of Governments.
Hampshire Council of Governments. County was abolished
I
in
know.
1999 by Governor Welch.
And my brain stopped, and I was like,
Let somebody
trying to
knows, right?
Well,
Thank you very much. Good evening. I know you have a very busy agenda, so I'm going to talk fast and hopefully let you guys do most of the talking. I assume most of you have heard our presentation before. Try to stop by every year and give you an update on the services that the Hampshire Council of Governments offers. Obviously, the county was abolished in '99. We are a voluntary government organization. We receive most of our funding for our fee-for-service programs. We have roughly a $8 to $9 million budget, and we get $23,000 from our membership dues. All the rest comes in from one federal and one state grant, covering our retired senior volunteer program and our tobacco-free partnership. And the balance of the sum comes from our fee-for-service programs and services which serve the Commonwealth. We're going through a vision, mission, and strategic planning process currently. In the presentation, as part of your packet, you see our vision statement, mission statement, and guiding principles. Obviously, we are a very unique governmental body in that we're not a regional planning agency like every other regional entity in the Commonwealth. And that makes us unique in that we really focus on bringing you programs and services that are sustainable over time. That means that if we do get a grant to fund a program or service, we really see it as startup capital, and we use that to create a sustainable business model through time. So we're going to go through our core services with you very briefly, and I'd like to quickly introduce Sinead Coleman, who's going to speak about our suite of electricity and solar business.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Sinead Coleman. I'm the Director of Energy Operations at Hampshire Council of Governments. I manage Hampshire Power, which is under the umbrella of Hampshire Council of Governments. And a few things that we currently do is, if you're on like probably the 4th page or so, I want to say, you'll see Hampshire Power. So we have community aggregation. We offer this to cities, towns, and municipalities across the Commonwealth. Currently, you can see the map. It has little red dots where you can see where all the different towns are that we currently service. This is in, just so you guys are following along, in this packet here.
Bad packet.
No, it's okay. We gave you a folder filled with various information on Hampshire Power and also our Hampshire Purchasing Cooperative. So if, once again, back on this page, you can see in the red, you can see all the different towns that we currently serve under our community aggregation. And what this is we offer fixed rates for a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever the town is looking for, plus whatever mix of power that they're looking for. We have certain municipalities that are looking for green options. Maybe they're looking for more conventional options. Maybe it's just for a low fixed rate for everybody across the municipality. It is an opt-out program, so everyone is enrolled unless you have a competitive supplier already. So we currently have 19 aggregated towns. We serve about 190,000 residents there. as well as serving municipalities in general. In total, we also serve municipal buildings, nonprofits, and businesses across the Commonwealth. This is the next page. Just like you have a National Grid or Eversource available in the Commonwealth. These rates go up and down every 6 months. So while there are all these, everybody's gotten these calls from a third-rate supplier, we are the only nonprofit electricity supplier in the Commonwealth. All right, so all of the revenue that is being generated from my program goes back into all these programs that Todd covers. It also goes into you mentioned Green Communities grants. So we help with administrating those. We help with various sustainability initiatives as well. So Massachusetts, very expensive. So we're able to lock in rates for these municipal buildings as well as businesses and nonprofits. We also have if you come on board with Hampshire Power or you refer another business or nonprofit, we have an awesome referral program with the United Way of Hampshire County. And so we've raised funds for them every time somebody chooses to go with Hampshire Power. So once again, we're the only nonprofit electricity supplier, very unique, very bare bones. We have, a lot of our municipalities and our nonprofits and businesses are really proud to work with us. So, as well as that, now, a lot of folks cannot go solar. All right, so if you're looking to figure out where your generation is coming from, many folks have looked into either putting solar on their buildings. Some folks can't. So instead, there's community solar programs. The one we administer is Hampshire Solar. That it has net metering. So we have folks that are enrolled in a net metering program. We partner with Nexamp. They are out of Boston, and they have various community solar projects across the state. So these are available in National Grid and Eversource territory. With that, it's very simple. Somebody just acknowledges that they're interested in getting community solar. This could be a resident, a business, or a municipality, and they get a strict 15% savings. Very simple. If you've gone through maybe a solar consultation, it could be a 15% savings. It could be more. It could be less. This is just a 15%. So we just find it very important to keep up the renewable industry here. We just so happen to be working with solar in this program. So once again, my name is Sinead Coleman, and I'm the Director of Energy Operations here. So if you have any questions, let me know. Yep.
I'm just curious, you have a sample rate, like today, what your rate is?
Yeah, well, so we always try to keep it less than and very competitive to National Grid or Eversource. Obviously, we can have like a 6-month or a 12-month or a 24 months. They all range. It also depends on what the usage of the building is. All right, so I couldn't probably give you a rate right now. Are you guys in Eversource or National Grid right now? I don't remember. Eversource? Eversource? Okay. I'm happy to run a proposal for you guys. It's really just based off of your usage. You guys were with, Southampton was with us about 2 years ago, I want to say. So I can run those numbers and I can give you guys a rate if need be. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Do you have any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Sinead. Also, one of our longest standing programs is the purchasing co-op. So we purchase about $9 million worth of goods and services on behalf of the 115 schools, towns, and nonprofits that participate. You are one of those participants. I can go over your participation in a moment. We also have the Hampshire IT Service, which is a public-private partnership with Paragus IT based in Hadley. We've been with them now for 5 years. The way that service works, so the more towns that sign on, the lower the overall rate gets for everybody. So it's a regional full-service IT procurement bid that we did about several years ago, and we renew it every so often. You have unlimited rollover hours, and we can start that with a free IT assessment, which I recommend all of our member towns perform. So I know we've been in touch with you. I believe Ellen has been in touch with that, so we look forward to moving that forward. If you are looking to look at your website or improve your website in any way, we also have Hampshire Web, which is again a public-private partnership with a Massachusetts-based web firm, Virtual Towns and Schools, which many towns use, and that offers a discounted rate on any new or improved websites, so we recommend you look at that. Obviously, housed within the council is the Hampshire County Group Insurance Trust, and if you have any comments or questions on that, the Insurance Trust Director, Joe Shea, can come and give you more details on your involvement in that. The Retired Senior Volunteer Program at Hampshire and Franklin Counties is also based with the HCOG. Every year we have about 630 or 40 or so volunteers throughout Hampshire and Franklin County, providing about 100,000 hours of volunteer service through nonprofits and senior centers. You're one of the recipients of those hours, and we're very proud of that program, and we also just received notice last week that we will be funded for the next fiscal year, which is impressive under the current administration. We also have the Tobacco-Free Community Partnership, which is the anti-tobacco program that the state has, and that works with local health boards and housing authorities to make smoke-free housing and also address smoking regulations in your convenience stores, et cetera. That may be expanding with the new state revenue for cannabis and that issue, but that remains to be seen. We also offer green community support, so both for certification and also once you receive your green community status, you may be awarded grants, and there's additional funds for the administration of those grants. While the initial paperwork to become a green community may not be onerous, I can assure you that the paperwork afterwards is. And we'd be glad to work with you and help you with that. We work with Bernie Kubiak, who was the ex-town manager of Hadley and also Deerfield, and he works with the communities with that. Related to that is the Meta Grant Administration and support. We also house the Hampshire County Select Board Association, which many of you attend. We've also unveiled last year the Hampshire Town Workshops, where we had quarterly workshops on town meetings, town accounting, budget planning, et cetera, and we're putting together the program for the next fiscal year for those workshops as well. We also have the Hampshire Emergency Communications Program, which started off with the Hampshire Hills, the rural communities and the hill towns, but we're working to expand and making sure that the emergency communication system here in Hampshire County is top-notch and matches some of our surrounding communities. So you see on that next page the current services that you do utilize. Obviously, you've been using the purchasing cooperative for some time. Your overall purchasing went down about 45% between FY15 and FY16. In your packet, there's a detailed breakdown of your current fiscal year savings, as well as a comparison between FY15 and FY16. If you have any questions on that, I'm glad to take them. And also Ellen Batchelder, who lives here in town, was unable to make it tonight, but she's glad to come back and meet with you and town administrator and talk through those savings. She's met also, she's very welcome to meet with your DPW director and other folks who do some procurement for the communities to see where we can provide some additional savings. And we're also very interested in finding out what types of new services or bids you would be interested in for us to regionalize on your behalf and then reach out to the other communities, the other 40 communities and schools and nonprofits that use the bid to see if we can find some cost savings for you. The other savings are in there as well, and I'm interested to hear from you what you would like to see the Hampshire Council of Governments work on in the future. I can say that we are looking to expand the purchasing co-op extensively, we're also looking to initiate a program with contributory towns. So if you create a bid for whatever specialty item or service you're looking at, we welcome you to submit that to us, and we will attempt to regionalize it and then share the revenue of that regionalization with you as the person who created that bid. So we're calling that our contributory town aspect of that. So definitely look into that. And as Sinead mentioned, Hampshire Power can bring you savings with a fixed rate product, and Hampshire Solar is really a no-brainer for the net metering credits. That's a 15% discount off your electricity bill as soon as the project goes live. So with that, I know you've got a busy agenda tonight, so I'm glad to answer any questions and also hear any suggestions that you may have for new programs and services.
Grant administration.
Yep, Bernie does do grant administration, so he can do a couple things for you. He can come in and meet with you, look at your needs, and then identify what federal, state, or even private sector grants may be applicable to help you meet those needs. And then he's available for grant administration to help write and then administer the grant if so needed.
Can we get Bernie in here after the town meeting in May?
Yes. When I was in Northfield, I had him come in, evaluate technology, did a great job, and not only telling you what you have and what you need to do soon, but also gave us a plan for, the next 10 years, what we ought to be doing for the town of that size. So I think that would be also something useful to have done after town meeting.
I worked with Bernie in a prior life, but it wasn't with grants.
Most people work with Bernie in a prior life.
I know.
Been around. But that's what makes him, excellent at what he does. We're also working with Bernie to create a bid for human resource services. So a lot of us don't have a human resource department. A lot of us are dependent on our legal team to update our personnel policies. They're all relatively the same across the communities of Western Mass. So it makes sense to us to look at a way to regionalize that, both with HR specialization firm as well as a legal team that can help update our personnel policies when the state hits us with another law change.
Okay. Comments, questions, thoughts?
Nope.
Great.
Tell Bernie I said aye.
I will, and we're here for you, so anything you think of, please feel free to reach out to me and we'll get on it right away. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I will leave with you our annual report on presses. Just make that available for folks in town. If you run out, let us know.
We did get, Ellen gave me copies of this, which I gave to the board as
Great.
well.
Yeah, the purchasing breakdown.
Right.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. Interviewing consultants for the Town Administrator Search Committee. I could tell.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How y'all doing tonight? I was told I only have an hour to present, so I may not use all of that time. So, no, really, I'm here to answer any questions. I am assuming you all have received our proposal. Is that accurate?
We got it by email, and I did send it on to the board.
Okay, great. So what I will do is I will introduce myself. I will introduce the Collins Center, briefly go through our process, and really just answer your questions, because that's what's important to you of how we approach filling a town administrator job. So a little bit about the Collins Center. We were created in 2008 within the McCormick School of Government at UMass Boston. Our whole mission is to help cities, towns, and agencies be better, whatever that means for them. Whether it's funny to hear the COG. I do quite a bit of work with the Franklin Regional Council of Governments. We're actually doing an HR procurement, trying to do shared services on that. So definitely pursue that with them because it'll be a great opportunity for you. There's an arm of the Collins Center that does a lot of statistical analysis, government analytics. They do CIPs, they do charter work, you know, those kinds of things. I lead the HR practice. My colleague Dick Kobayashi leads the recruitment practice. I work with him on recruitments. I live in Shrewsbury, right outside of Worcester, so I am thrilled to be the person who gets assigned to all recruitments beyond Central Mass, where people don't think anything exists. So being a graduate of UMass Amherst, so when you say UMass to me, it means Amherst. Don't tell my boss at UMass Boston that when you say UMass to me, it means Amherst. So I was there both undergraduate and graduate school. The work that I lead specifically are all of the HR audits. I'm involved in all most of the recruitments in the Commonwealth. You will see attached our 50-plus recruitments that we've worked on since the beginning of the Collins Center in 2008. I am thrilled to be able to come visit UMass. I've got projects in Chicopee and Northampton this week, so I'm out here for a few nights. Yes, and I left my husband and kids at home. I'm so sad. So our most recent search out here was East Longmeadow. So I gave you that process, and they had gone through quite a transition in government, a lot going on. You'd be shocked to know sometimes politics impacts these positions, and we're able to get in there and really get at what the job is not, what the community is looking for. We could absolutely just do an ad for you and collect resumes. We don't do that because we'd rather have you get 15 excellent candidates who are really interested in your job than putting a job on monster.com and, getting, it's not about getting 80 resumes, it's about getting really good ones. So that's our approach. A little bit about me. I have been with the Collins Center since 2009. I was fortunate enough to be able to quit my job in 2003 to be home with my children. Now I've got one going off to college, so I need the work. So I have 3 teenage children, so I was able to be home for a number of years. The job I quit was the Watertown HR director. I was there 8.5 years outside of Cambridge in Watertown. I worked in Barnstable before that. I worked in Wellesley before that, and I worked on dating myself. I worked for the Mass DPW, which became Mass Highway, which became Mass, is it DOT these days? Yeah, and 1986 graduate of UMass Amherst, and then 91 I got my MPA from UMass. So that's me in a nutshell. And our process, we firmly believe in a screening committee, and I'm so thrilled to hear that you selected one or are in the process of finalizing having a screening committee. Whoever you use as a consultant, whether it be my dear friend Mr. Lynch or whether it would be Mark Morris or you use us, really using a screening committee is the way to go. You all want to be looking at finalists. You don't want to be the one screening resumes and looking at things. It really puts you in a better place as the appointing authority to have that work done ahead of time. The most important thing you will do when you are moving forward is to create that profile that I put in front of you. That becomes your definition of the job. It becomes the culture of the job. Anybody can say, we're looking for a town administrator and here's the pay and you're in charge of the budget. But what we really get at is that profile. And that becomes, and we really insist that the board members approve the profile and it's from them. And the way that we do that is we interview each one of you individually. We interview department heads to get their input as well. But really, you are the appointing authority. It's your input that is most important. We're happy to do the proposal I sent you said draft only because if you want something different in it, we can modify it. Some towns like to have a public forum, to have resident input. We kind of view it as the input was they voted you in, And, we want your input. We tend to meet with the finance people, the planning people. We have a group meeting with department heads. We have individual meetings, typically with your economic development people or your finance people, so that we really can get at the meat and bones of the organization, so that when we're talking to candidates, we're being honest. We don't want to get somebody to apply who's not interested in being here. And so we put a lot of time up front in that, and we really think it pays dividends on that. So we do the profile, we advertise in the typical places. You don't need to advertise everywhere for this type of job. You want to advertise in the MMA and certainly in the ICMA. You all will decide whether somebody needs absolute Massachusetts experience or not. You're not that far from Connecticut, so you may want to, that's up to you to decide. We recommend you'd rather cast a wider net and narrow it down than be so narrow as to not having a pool that is robust. You will decide whether the position requires an advanced degree or not. We tend to like to recommend you use words like any equivalent combination of education, experience, and municipal work, only because you never know. You can have, there's perfectly qualified people with 20 years of experience who may not have that master's degree or an advanced degree. So you don't want to discount that. Or in an experience recently, where they were they wanted a master's degree. The person was graduating in May and the deadline was April. We could not consider that person. So we don't want to be so rigid. We have high standards. Obviously you have high standards, but we want to find the best fit, and that's the most important thing. So what we do is we use that profile, we advertise the MMA, ICMA. The biggest thing that we do is the direct networking. Sometimes the best person for the job isn't looking for a job, and we say, tap, 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 look at this great opportunity. We recommend that you absolutely advertise a salary range. To say depending on qualifications is just too nebulous for people. You're either going to get people who think you'll pay $150,000 or $60,000, or you'll undercut on the other side. So we do recommend you say, depending on qualifications, this is our expectation. We can help you look around in the market to come up with what that is if you don't already have a set plan on what you're willing to pay. We would say, don't absolutely go high, because you may decide, well, we'll take an up-and-comer, but we're not willing to pay that. So we like to work with you on finessing that salary range. Yes, you want to show a willingness to pay, but you also don't want to, not that anybody in municipal work is overpaid, but you know what I'm saying. We're all in it for the money, just ask all your employees. So that's how we advertise the job. So what we do is we collect the resumes. We do a lot of individual outreach, referral. As you can see, we promise not to poach anybody we've placed in a job, but we're getting up to 9 years of business now. Sometimes the people we have placed in smaller towns are ready to move on. We don't actively recruit anybody we have placed, but obviously they read the MMA and the ICMA, but it certainly wouldn't behoove us to, poach somebody we just placed a few years ago. But free will and all of that, so, what we then do is once we close the deadline, we create, I will not share this with you, but I will show it to you. We do a book of resumes. So this is everybody who had applied. So don't read the names as I flip through them. So we create for the screening committee a book of resumes of those who applied. We will, when we meet with the screening committee, go through them and say, this one you should look at, this one we don't think meets the minimum requirements. We have a practice of showing the screening committee everybody who applied. Sometimes people argue, we only want to see the ones who are qualified. Well, we want the screening committee to weigh in on that. If we feel somebody doesn't even have the minimum, we will say that, But you'll also be shocked to know politically, people want to know, oh, did John Doe apply? I heard John Doe was applying, and that Jack Martin, he really should apply, So we tend to show the screening committee everybody who applied, and it takes just a few minutes to knock those out, and we recommend who should not be included. But that way, there's no doubt of, did I not see somebody who applied, and maybe they had something different that the consultant didn't see, whether it be local flavor. We never recommend a courtesy interview. Don't waste the committee's time. Don't give people the idea they have a chance at a job that they don't. If they're qualified, we cast a wide net, so we would include them. So we work with the screening committee to narrow it down to who would be involved in a preliminary interview. We would set those up, we would contact the candidates, we work with the screening committee to develop questions that certainly get at the job, which is why the profile is so important. We make sure every question that is asked is related back to the profile where you said what you were interested in. And we also make sure that interviews are documented, they're standard. Doesn't mean you can't do a follow-up question, but every candidate should be asked the same things. And it's getting easier and easier these days as people are more sophisticated. We make sure there are no illegal questions asked. I was on a committee in a town not to be named years ago, and the committee members said, oh, so your husband supports you working, isn't that nice? So it is pretty funny, and it was well intended because the woman mentioned her husband saw the posting. And we make sure childcare questions are not asked, or, parental status, which is, so those kinds of things. So we are able to do that with you. We come to consensus with the screening committee of who they want to move forward to the next round. We don't necessarily recommend calling them finalists yet because they're not finalists until their backgrounds are done. And we can do that. We do an education check, a criminal check, a credit rating check, and personal references. So they don't technically become finalists until that background is done. And that background process is sometimes where you lose some candidates who are thinking, okay, how many finalists do you have, and do I really want my name out there? Does it feel real yet? And the wonderful thing about using the screening committee, whoever you hire, I hope it's the Collins Center, is that the confidentiality of the candidates is preserved. Because if you're a town administrator someplace, you don't really want to be out there shopping around interviewing. That can harm your current situation. So then once they move forward to the final stage, we can help you set up those interviews, and we give you guidance, but we are not involved in the final interview process. You're the appointing authority. That screening committee, as facilitated by us, gets you your finalists who are fully vetted. You shouldn't have a consultant help you decide who you want. They should present that platter to you, and you choose what you want. We want to make sure everybody on that platter is equally qualified. We tell screening committees, don't send forward A and B candidates because you'll be disappointed. Boards tend to go with B candidates because they're the safer ones. So we say better to give 3 finalists who are all A's than to give 5, and in your mind you've got A's and B's. So we send forward candidates who are unranked and equally qualified in the eyes of the committee. And we only in one instance of all the ones I've been involved in actually had votes at the screening committee level. It is in 1 out of 50, so 49 out of 50, it's always been consensus of who gets moved forward, which is a great process. And the committee that had to vote had 11 members on it. That was too large. We recommend that 5 to 7 is a good working group. So that's enough about me and our process. I'll answer questions.
Are you the person that will be the contact?
I would be the person because of the location. I don't do all of them. My colleague Richard Kobayashi leads the practice, but because of geography and practicality and my familiarity with Western Mass, he's an Eastern Mass guy. I get it. Although I think he's a UMass grad too, but we won't. He doesn't count. I think being right on the pike in Shrewsbury is what dictates. And I was the one in Wilbraham, we did East Longmeadow, we did South Hadley. I do a lot of work in Holyoke and Chicopee, so I'm kind of the Western Mass, the FERCog, and so I'm the person who would be assigned out here, and I'd be thrilled to come out here again.
What would you guess the length of the process?
The length of time. The biggest challenge is actually your screening committee schedule. So hopefully you appoint people who are available regularly. There's not many meetings. The time is getting the profile done, which could be 3 weeks. If we signed up, what's today's date, 21st? If we signed up on the 27th to get moving forward, by the second week in April, you could advertise and have your profile done. Again, we want you to approve that at a meeting. Sometimes it's meeting schedules or edits that take time. If you advertised, let's just say for the sake of argument, Friday the 14th of April, for the sake of argument, you would have a deadline of the 14th of May. Your screening committee would meet the week of the 21st to review resumes. They'd interview 21st, they'd interview right after Memorial Day. We try to do them all in the same week so that it's fresh in the screening committee's mind. So you would have background checks being done on those candidates the beginning of June, and you would have your final interviews in June. Realistically, you would have your process done by the end of June, depending on whether somebody has to give a notice or something like that. You're looking at the fiscal year, realistically. We'd like to say, we can get it done yesterday, but it's too important to get a mediocre candidate, and you've been smart to have an interim so that you're not feeling, there's pressure to get things going, but by having an interim, you give yourself a little bit of a breather, and you can do the job well. We will say, sometimes people don't need to give notice because they might be in transition, and that's not a bad thing either. Again, I go back to, you'll be shocked to know sometimes politics and boards and candidates take over and people are between jobs, and sometimes you luck out on that. But for the sake of a few weeks, you want to do it right.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm sorry, what was your...
Mary.
Mary, what's your last name again?
Icardi, it's A. The A is silent, my husband's Italian. I-C-A-R-D-I. Flanders is my maiden name. I usually use that. It's a little easier.
Well, thank you so much for coming to talk to us tonight, Mary. I have a general question.
Sure.
What is the average salary of a town administrator in Western Massachusetts? What have you found?
Well, I looked at this recently, and I don't want to use, we could go to Northfield. I would say it's getting up there too. Probably, 100.
Okay, a small town.
Really 90.
Small.
Town of. I'll give you some facts rather than me putting a value judgment on it. How's that? Town of Irving.
Okay. Would you know the population there?
Yeah, population's about 2,000, but Irving gets paper mill money.
Yes, it
gets
does.
Northeast
But
Utility.
82,000. They're under 5,000. 82,000.
Oh,
yeah. Just out of graduate school.
I used to
Very
do
little.
work
No, it's and again, that's why I say a range.
Do you know Hadley's?
I don't know what Hadley is.
Just curious.
Yeah.
You looking for a number you like?
Yeah.
I don't know. I do know. Where's my friend? He's sitting here, okay? So my friend, Bernie, I live in Shrewsbury. Bernie is doing the town manager search in Shrewsbury. I don't even want to tell you the 170 that they have advertised.
170?
Yes. And again, different, different, 33,000, Millis, for example, 120. Out here it's a little bit less, but Northfield, went twice out, couldn't come to money. Templeton, they had to re-advertise because they couldn't come to money. It's a demanding field right now. So you are, you know, I wouldn't want to quote me, but I think you're looking at 90. You know, and we would pin that down for you, you know. And it's very tricky. It's very tricky because, you know, there's such fabulous jobs. People who do this work are passionate. They're not in it for the money. You know, you can make a decent living doing it, certainly, especially in Western Mass, in the smaller towns. It is a different culture here. I know I do quite a bit of work in Franklin County. You know, Buckland is 60-something for that town administrator. Northfield, it really got brought up in recent years. That's, I think, 90-something.
Ashburnham was, what, about 115?
Yeah.
No, it was closer to, what, 95?
No.
Oh, no.
I don't know how much that was. I do know,
She got over 100.
I do know that Templeton went from somewhere in the low 60s to a range at the top for 110, and they were all shocked when they were turned down
Yeah.
at 110. Yes?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so Deerfield, I don't know what that person is. And again, it's all public information, and we're throwing people's salaries around. It's a little sensitive. But no, Templeton went out again and advertised more clearly. They had said what it was, and yet, and again, that's where the conversations with the consultant is important about real expectations. You know, asking for 150 when it's advertised at 110 should never happen.
But do you think, don't you believe that it's important that we put out an acceptable salary to get the best candidate to apply?
Absolutely, and you determine what is acceptable, and your consultant will help you with that comparison. Because what you may also do is say, I have not studied your organization. I don't know what your finance team looks like. Different places, Templeton, for example, is practically in receivership, you know, so they were really going through some struggles. So different towns have different decisions at different points in time. If you need somebody who's strong in HR, you might need a different person. But if you have an HR department, you may not need that. As I said, you may catch somebody on the way up in their career who has the technical skills, and if you have a sophisticated organization around that person, you could, you know, it's like any negotiation. You could go low and hope that they build up. Or you could pay a little more and get somebody who could walk in to do the job. I won't ask my friend over here, you know, if he was working full-time, what would he demand as a salary to be your town administrator? And you're probably saying worth every penny, because somebody really good for fewer hours can be, those are all things that you may not know at this moment, but as we get into developing your profile and learning the organization, that's when that dictates, which is why we do recommend you put in a decent range so that you have that flexibility. So we always try to finesse it and word it in a way, but we don't want anybody who says, you know, if you come up and say the range is to the low 100s, and somebody comes in and says to us, well, I think 140 is low 100s. No, you know, there's not the ability to pay. You have to have the willingness to pay and the ability to pay, you know. So it's really it's premature to say that, and I didn't analyze the towns around, but knowing, you know, and then you've got to look at your market too. You're somewhat, I don't think you're regionally challenged, but some people may say that you are. You know, you've got you know, you've got a few cities around you, their structure is very different. You know, mayors take lower pay because they love their work than town administrators do. It's different. There's just different beasts, you know, so, which is also why you see the Council of Governments doing a lot of shared services, and that's where those professionals are. So it's also, those council groups are so valuable, but it gives you a false sense of what affordability is, because you're only paying your fraction of it. So, So I know that's not the answer you wanted, but it's the one I have.
Any other questions?
Charlie, I don't know if this is right or not, but I know they're not sworn in, but would they have any, did we miss anything that they would be looking for? I don't know.
Parts of the committee are here.
Parts of the committee, we have 3 members, they're not sworn in yet, but could they, did we miss anything that we should be asking, or that they have questions? I don't know.
Sure.
I think it's been covered. I wouldn't spend too much time on the salary question, although you gave other answers that make sense, because that's not about your choice of the consultant.
Right.
It is how are you going to set it up. It's a reasonable question, but I'm worried about that at this point.
I'm with you on that.
Get into it, and have these figures available.
Yeah. Thank
Okay,
you,
great.
Mary.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Good luck in your process, and you'll do well with no matter what you do. You know, obviously, Bernie and I are both going to say, "Oh, pick me, pick me." But really, the Collins Center is here for you, whether it's this project or another one, and we're happy to help you out and answer any questions you have down the line. I wish you luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Mary.
All right, well, you have a nice long drive home. I'm
I
going
will.
right to
I
Northampton.
will. I love my driving. So,
Have a good evening.
take care, Mary.
You too.
Well, I think many of you probably know me or remember me. I was here 4 or 5 months ago to talk to you about another project with regards to your form of government. And you were in the middle of the transition then, and you made the wise choice of bringing Bob on to serve as an interim. And I'm here tonight to talk to you about my approach to recruiting. As Mary pointed out, I have been doing some recruiting. For those of you who don't know my background, I've been a municipal manager. That was basically been my career. I was a town manager in the town of Chelmsford for almost 20 years. I was a city manager of Lowell for almost 8 years. And I was the interim town manager in Winchendon. I was recruited by the Department of Revenue to come in and sort of help straighten out a problem that Winchendon was having with regards to their finances. I did that back about a year, 15 months after I left the city of Lowell. Since I left Lowell, I've been operating my own consulting business, though. I've been teaching at the University of Massachusetts Lowell in their political science department. I haven't done that for about a year, though, now, but I've also been involved with Suffolk University in their School of Business and their Public Administration program, working on, particularly on their local government certificate program, helping new people enter the municipal management field. So I've been doing that academic work, and then, as you know, I've been doing some consulting on public management studies. I did the work here in the town of Southampton, which I think gives me a very good understanding of the issues that you have and the people that you have. Certainly, I've had an opportunity to talk with Vicki on a number of occasions here when I was out here doing the work that I was doing. I'm doing a personnel system study for the town of Winchendon right now. They asked me to come back and help them with that. A budgeting system for the town of Millis, reorganization of the health department in the town of Sharon. I'm doing some work with community aggregation, which Hampshire Council of Government was just here talking to you a little bit about that. So I've been keeping my hands in a number of different types of projects that I find interesting. And one of the areas that I'm particularly interested in is recruiting. I'm very proud of the fact that as a manager, I put together, I think, very good teams of people in the town of Chelmsford, city of Lowell, and even in the short time, 6 months that I was in Winchendon, I assembled and hired very good people. And I think that that is something that I enjoyed doing, and I think I was pretty good at it, and finding the right people who were the right fit. So I actually did some work with the Collins Center in the city of Chelsea, where I served as the chair of the search committee in hiring the new Chelsea city manager. When I was in Winchendon, they actually asked me to provide them with a proposal to hire a new town manager there. Winchendon, as I said, had a very difficult financial condition that they were grappling with, a budget deficit of about $3.5 million that they had to close.
So it was not the most attractive job for many people. But I was very happy with the work that we did, working with the screening committee and bringing in a number of very good candidates and an outstanding town manager that we brought in from the Salem, New Hampshire. He's done a remarkable job over the last year. Then I was brought on by the town of Amherst. Again, a difficult position there because they're going through a change in the form of government, and that raised a number of questions in the minds of many people in the municipal management world. And we were very fortunate to get a very good group of candidates there that I was able to bring in. And they have a new town manager that's doing quite well. And then that led to doing recruiting for the town of Wellesley, which had gone through a phase where they had rejected a change of government in their charter. So they have a very unique form of government here in Massachusetts. So that led to, again, another challenging position to fill. But again, I got a very good crop of candidates who was able to fill that. Now working with the town of Shrewsbury, as Mary Hardy pointed out, hiring a new town manager there. They're an interesting community. They've had 3 managers in the town of Shrewsbury over the last 63 years, 2 over the last 60. One lasted 40, one lasted 20. The first guy only lasted 3. By way of comparison, in that same period of time, the city of Lowell, I think they went through 19 managers. So I have I'm number 3 on the longevity list in the city of Lowell. So I'm very proud of that. But I also did a search for an executive director of the Merrimack Valley Regional Planning Commission. I was just hired yesterday by the Massport Community Advisory Committee to hire an executive director for that organization. So I've all told, I think I'm in around 7 or 8 over the last 15 months of recruitments that I've done. Again, I enjoy it. My process is very similar. Actually, I think if you looked at anyone that you brought in here, our processes, our approaches are very similar in terms of putting together a profile of the town that serves as a piece of marketing for the town in attracting candidates and explaining to candidates what the issues are. It also is an important process that you go through and the community goes through in determining what type of person, really sitting down perhaps for the first time and saying, this is the type of person we want to serve as our town administrator. And by doing that, it helps the screening committee understand the qualities that the Board of Selectmen will be looking for and the qualities that the community as a whole will be looking for. Now, I usually do a public input type of approach. That's something I believe can be very, very helpful. But again, there's added time and costs that go with that. So we can talk about how we can set up something like that. There may be some mechanisms that we can use along those lines. Certainly the screening committee can play a role with that. Following the profile being prepared and submitted to the board for adoption, again, very similar to the way the Collins Center does it and other recruiting consultants do it, we go out and we find people. We advertise the same places, Mass Municipal Beacon, the ICMA. I actually utilize the colleges as well. I too am a graduate of UMass, and they have a very good public administration program there that we can draw upon. Suffolk generates most of the managers probably here in the state, and so I'm very tied in with the Suffolk University program, so try to draw upon those. Not specifically for the people who are graduates now, but the people who have graduated and are part of the network that they receive information from that of what jobs are out there. Work with the screening committee, narrowing the field. Again, I take all the resumes in. To me, it's important to maintain that confidentiality. I think one of the strengths that I bring in helping a town, and again, whichever consultant you decide to go with, I'm sure you'll get a good product. But the strength that I bring is 35 years of municipal government experience. I know the role of the town administrator. I understand that role. I understand the questions that candidates have. I understand the questions that the boards of selectmen have with regards to hiring someone.
I also have a very extensive network. As you might imagine, over 35 years, I know pretty much every town administrator and every town manager here in the Commonwealth and in some of the neighboring states. Through the recruitments that I have done, I've developed a more extensive network of people that I can draw upon. I make it a point of going out and marketing the community to those people that I know and helping them understand the opportunities that exist within the town of Southampton. So bring all those resumes in, work with the screening committee to narrow the field. We can talk about how we can go through that. That's something I think the screening committee and the consultant can work out how all of that happens. And then bring you 3 to 4 good candidates that you can draw upon. That's the process in a nutshell, and that's my experience and my background. And be happy to answer any questions. I did submit a proposal to the town back in November. I did not update that for tonight, and I apologize. I can do that for you if you'd like. I think I can provide these services in a cost-effective way for you. And again, drawing upon much of my knowledge of the town from the work I did here last year. And Jackie, before you get to it, I think the salary is probably about $90,000.
About 3 months, right?
No, it's going to. No, it'll take about 4 months.
4 months. Okay.
4 months.
I have another question.
Every recruitment I've done, Shrewsbury's on the fast track. Shrewsbury, we started at the middle of January, I think they brought me on, and we will have that filled by the end of April. They've made that a priority to get that done, and their screening committee is 2 members of the Board of Selectmen and the chairman of the Finance Committee. So that's pushing that one fast. But every other search takes about 4 months to do.
So, how do you go about learning about a candidate's working relationships? With people, where she's talking about maybe getting other people that have worked, other town administrators into this town hall, how can we find out what their relationships were or how they worked well with other people in the positions they have now? I know that there's laws you can't call and say anything negative about, or
Right.
a person can't say anything negative about a person they've worked for. But sometimes it seems like you don't really get into their personality until they're here. I mean, their resumes are beautiful,
Right.
their history, their time, but really getting into the personality of that individual. How do you discover that?
Well, that is a tough one. If people can put on a good act, the challenge I think that the consultant has, and the screening committee, and the Board of Selectmen, and by having all 3 of those people involved in that, you try through your questioning, through scenarios that you cast out to the candidates, how they would handle those scenarios, you get a sense of how they interact with people, what their personality type is, of how they would fit. That's one of the, I mentioned that my experience as a manager, one of the communities I was working with recently actually asked me, they said, well, you don't have the number of years as a recruiter. I said, well, actually I do, because I was recruiting for myself. I was recruiting as a manager and to hire the right people. And they did hire me to do the recruiting for them. But one of the issues that I think everyone that hires people has to consider is the fit. People can look great on paper. People can, it's even one technique. There's another town right now that's looking to hire someone, and they're interested in going through this elaborate assessment center process, where they put people through a number of, I mentioned scenarios, but they put them through actual made-up scenarios. They'll hand them an inbox of materials and say, okay, you've got an hour, do the work. And they'll put them through a media event and see how they work that out. even in those situations, I don't think that necessarily tells you whether the person is the right fit. I think it's getting into the communication the dialogue back and forth with the candidate to get a sense of how they respond to people, how they have dealt with prior situations, and then it's doing the necessary reference check. And I think it goes beyond just calling up their references. It's actually delving into a network that may be out there or should be out there to find out how they responded to situations that happened in their communities beforehand. And again, it's drawing upon that network of people. And again, I think I have that, and that's what I've used in the past to help make decisions.
Okay.
I do think one difference that it's somewhat unfair that I sat here and listened, but the one difference I do have is I don't think the consultant necessarily should be telling the board who to hire, but I do think having the consultant here during the process gives the board someone to help them coordinate everything, work with them on drawing up the questions, work with them on drawing up the any exercises that you want to use. For instance, in Amherst, what we did, they were thinking about doing some type of exercise, and what we came up with instead was we crafted an opportunity for the candidates to come in with something, an issue that they confronted in their prior community and how they dealt with it. And not only just how they dealt with it, but a written document that resulted from that. So a report to the board or a PowerPoint presentation to the board. Then walk this board through that situation, explaining what the issue was, how they were going to deal with it, what the results were, and what they learned from the process. And again, something like that I think gives you a sense of how they work with people and how they fit into the organization.
That sounds excellent. Thank you.
No additional?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
You wanna give the opportunity again to the folks?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sure. Vicki, what do you want?
You're all set?
No, I mean, I think Jackie's question was excellent. I mean, that's kind of,
Okay.
well, you don't know what
Yep.
happened, and I think what he gave for an answer is
Yep.
a good way to.
Either of you two want to ask a question?
I think the questions are a very important part of it, and making sure that they can ask to each candidate. It's very important. And developing the questions is the hard part.
Yeah, and those, I do think there should be uniformity. Some boards, some screening committees bristle a little with that because they want to, in looking at a resume, they may see something that they want to delve into and spend their time talking on that. There's ways I think you can make that happen, but all of the candidates should face the same uniform questions as to how they would deal with the situation, what their strengths, what their weaknesses are. It's really something that tells us about their qualifications, but in their style.
There may be things on the resume that one wants to check into further that wouldn't be on everybody else's resume.
That's right.
Like, you have a 2-year period here where you weren't working, doing anything, what were you doing? That's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, and I think that's one that you take up right at the beginning, oftentimes right at the beginning, in hearing them tell their story. And the follow-up question is, okay, well, between this and this, there seems to be a gap. What was that? So, but. Okay. What I can do is I will forward on a revised proposal
please.
based upon that. It really depends. I know that finances are always an issue, so I want to do this in the most financially sound way for the town. So we can, if you decide that the approach I use and you'd like to work with me, I'm sure we can work through some different scenarios. We keep on using the word scenarios, but some options.
We will need an estimate.
We'll get you an estimate, and then we can talk about ways we can build upon that or work away from that a little bit.
Okay.
Great. Thank you very much. Good seeing you all.
Bye.
My thought was to table this into our next meeting.
Yeah, because we only have one estimate, but now we can digest.
Right.
Correct.
And I gotta say, when we come up for a vote, I can't vote because I work for the university. I know these folks real well at the university, they do a great job, but I work there, so I don't want to have a perceived conflict there.
It's not one of us, it's another, isn't it?
Well, want to be upfront.
All right. So, do you want to put it on the agenda for next selectmen's meeting?
Next week?
Next regular or next week?
I was thinking next week.
Good
I was
God.
thinking-
It's a big damn agenda now.
Well, I mean, the following week is booked up too. That's part of the problem, but if we're gonna have the screening committee coming in next week for their charge, we might as well decide what consultant we're going with.
Yeah.
And if we're gonna review the town administrator's job description, then maybe we should just put that all together as one.
Right.
As long as we have the information, I have no problem.
Yep.
As long as his proposal comes in before the next meeting.
Assume you'll be looking
I'd
for
like to
some
have a little bit of
thoughts
time to
from,
digest it.
I'm sorry?
will you be looking, I assume, for some thoughts from the newly appointed search committee?
Right, are they gonna have a meeting and meet also with the two candidates? So then we can get their,
That wasn't the intent.
oh, no, okay.
I'm just saying
I was
that
just
I
curious on
can
that one.
receive comments from them if they have any and forward them to you.
Yeah,
Sure,
yeah.
absolutely.
you
Your
wanna do that by
decision.
email. In fact, you can take the proposals and send it to them, so that the committee can see what's going on and comment back. I'm just looking at this, because town meeting is gonna now become the priority of our meetings, it's gonna burn up a lot of time, so I'm sort of like trying to get that committee running, so that we can just move into.
May I make a quick suggestion? We, voted in the committee, but are you going to send out an email asking for a confirmation from these folks saying, yes, they will accept, because, just make sure nobody changed their mind? I mean, we have three right here.
Sure, we'll
so-
find out, yes, sure.
I already told the chief, anyway, he's good.
He was good too?
Mike was here,
Okay.
and he didn't jump up and say, oh my God.
George
I
was
think we're
here
good.
earlier. I don't know, does he know?
Well, just double check, and I'll just
Because we
remind
have to
them to
check
be
with
sworn in,
Randall. Yep,
to go to the clerk and be sworn.
Well, if they're sworn in, that probably means they're interested.
I would say.
That's a hint, huh?
It's a pretty good hint.
Can I make one suggestion?
No.
Who are you addressing?
Sorry. Well, because he's going to get with the task, so,
So you just tell him.
so, Vicky Morrow, Town Accountant, Pomeroy Manor Road. Should we create a town email? One email, like search committee, and then that gets filtered through all of our other emails? That way, you don't have to search for all of the ones of everyone.
That sounds great.
know?
How about creating a box account or a Dropbox account for it?
They're gonna need it too.
And we can just
We could do that, too.
password it for the committee.
Yep. But if you have, search committee at townofsouthampton.org or whatever, you don't have to look for everyone's, and
Yep,
it just
and we can
filters
file it
through,
in our
so
Dropbox
just
and-
thought I would throw that out there.
Good idea.
Okay, Bob, you're busy.
In your spare time.
I was just thinking, I like the idea of not being completely exclusive. I know in two communities, when I departed the town of Norfolk, I had hired a fellow from the private sector, an accountant, to be the chief financial officer, largely because I was turned down by the two people I wanted who had municipal experience. This guy was in the private sector, no municipal experience whatsoever. He got up to speed in 2 to 3 months, was a superb chief financial officer. When I left, I recommended they hire him as town administrator. He was also a good manager of that department. They had a vice president of Aetna on the board of selectmen, and he said, we're going to do it the Aetna way.
Oh, boy.
3 committees, 3 screening committees, all doing consensus stuff, not telling the other committees what they're doing, and finally they all come together and they went through the entire process. They did not pick the chief financial officer. I finally convinced them to apply. He wasn't a finalist. The selectmen interviewed their finalists, rejected all three, and hired the chief financial officer. He is still there, and this is 10 or 11 years doing exceptionally well.
Yeah, see, you never know.
Northfield, a similar experience. Collins handled that. They didn't exclude one guy who was completely from the private side, but wanted a change and was really enthusiastic about municipal government. Had all the qualifications except no experience. They came up with 4 candidates. He was one of them. They went through the people with long experience, rejected all 3, hired the guy with no experience, and he is also doing exceptionally well. You might want to call Jack Spanbauer, the chair of the board up there, and talk to him about that process, because
The common link.
you find
seems-
a diamond in the rough once in a while.
Common link seems to be you, Bob.
What?
Common link seems to be you,
What do you mean?
recommending.
Oh, well, yeah, well, of course, but I was going to tell Bernie when he made a comment, these people are easy to fool, they hired me.
Oh, okay.
Tough group here.
2.5 hours.
We're still on the area now.
Okay.
Are we still in the air?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still on the air.
But sometimes not being exclusive and not insisting on completely conventional qualifications and background will allow you to find someone who is very capable and will be an excellent person.
So we'll let the search committee,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, so I guess we're moving now into our executive sessions.
Great. Goodbye,
Bye,
congratulations.
thank
Thanks,
you.
Josie. Thanks, Vicki. We're
We all
going
set?
into executive session,
You all set here?
Oh, I have to leave and then come back in?
Yeah.
Okay.
unless she's first.
Under Mass General Law, Chapter 30, A, Section 21, Item 6, excuse me, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. Oh, those are the minutes. To consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate if the chair declares that an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the negotiation position of a public body. Well, that's certainly declared by the chair. To discuss strategies with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body, and so the chair declares, and the rest of it is basically approving executive session minutes. Roll call vote.
Cutler, aye.
Sears, aye.
Kaneki, aye.
Martin, aye.
Labrie, aye.
We're now in executive session.